Chapter 026. Bankruptcy seems to have really become a new and slowly accepted word in the wizarding world. At first, no one cared about Anson's big say in Gallon, but thought that with such a person who was stupid and had a lot of money, they would definitely make a big profit. As a result, it was slowly discovered that this was a honeypot. When the sweet honey falls to the bottom, some people can't come out. Nearly half of the shops in Diagon Alley were closed. No materials, no magic goods appeared, because there were not enough materials. Almost all the wizards who want to go to the wrong side of the street are cruising in their overturned alley. One by one, dressed in black pockets, they were staring at wizards who might become their prey. Some of the wizarding world have begun to resume farming, and those with house elves are better, and they don't have to do it themselves, and those who don't have it can only do it themselves. At this time, a loaf of bread is 5 gold gallons. Most of the family businesses were merged, sold at a low price, and could not be sustained. The goblins don't know how to deal with these things, and they have clearly remade a large number of gold gallons to fill the holes. But why is this happening? So the goblins decided, what is the matter with them? They're just in charge of Gringotts. At this time, the pressure came directly to the Ministry of Magic, and every day people went to the Ministry of Magic to protest, believing that the Ministry of Magic had caused the current situation. What can the Ministry of Magic do? Fudge had asked the wizards of the Mole Research Bureau if there was anything else they could do. The result is that the general trend has been achieved, and there is no way to return to the sky. Merlin can only shout when he is resurrected, "This is not magic." Of course, it's not out of the blue. As long as new material channels can be found and magic supplies appear in large areas again, as well as recover some of the gold gallons will no longer flow out, the high probability can change some situations. However, Fudge could not do this. He knew very well that at least more than 90% of the material channels were in the hands of the Pendra family. As for the so-called 28 pureblood families, take care of themselves. I heard that some families have sold large amounts of assets. For example, the Potter family. It is just a patent for eating shampoo, and now all industries have been impacted, and their existence of the Potter family is the first wave to be cleaned. It's equivalent to saying that Potter is also about to go bankrupt. Potions don't require your wands or spells, but at least you can't bring trolls' brains to my class. Snape walked among the young wizards. Suddenly turned to stare at Potter. Then Mr. Potter, please tell me, how is the compound decoction made? Potter, I don't know, Professor. How do you make wolf poison potions? I don't know, Professor. You always know about the elixir, right? Potter, you just pass the knife, don't be verbose. I don't know, Professor. It seems that fame really doesn't mean everything, so what are you doing with brand new books? Very good, one day to get. Every time he saw this face, he couldn't help it. Blinding those beautiful eyes and wasting Lily's talent. Late. Miss Beaver hurriedly came to Anson, who was sitting in the hall reading. Come out. What's wrong? Hermione whispered. Hagrid needs your help, and he said only you can help him now. Eyes lit up. What do you mean? Hermione shrugged. Well, it was Hagrid who said that Dumbledore asked him to come to you for help. Let's go. You'll know when you get to the place. Hagrid's cottage. As soon as he entered the door, Anson knew what was going on. A backboned dragon was held by Hagrid, and from time to time it spewed flames from its mouth. Anson frowned. So, you guys let Dilico discover the existence of the dragon, and then want to send the dragon away? Hagrid was a little embarrassed. Yes, it's just that basically all the dragon fields are under your property at the moment, so I hope you can help, Mr. Pendra. Hagrid, we're friends, aren't we? Just call me Anson. Of course, I'm willing to help you. Gave a look. Hagrid, Harry, Hermione, you guys go back first. Ron, why? We also want to see the dragon sent away. Hermione, Ron, what do you want to do when the professor comes and sees us here? However, as soon as he went out, he was blocked by McGonagall at the door, and there was a sinister Dilico behind him, and the treachery succeeded. Pictured. How dare you? Ron muttered. There's another one in there. And one? McGonagall walked in. Who else but Hagrid? HMPH, Mr. Weasley, lying is not a grind or quality. The older cat lady was obviously not easy to fool. Ron snatched the door in. However, there was still a shadow of Anson. It can't be. Hagrid, what about Anson? Hagrid said. What Anson? Aren't you the only ones with me? Professor McGonagall, please punish them fiercely. They dare to come out in the middle of the night. It's too unspeakable. Harry, Hermione, Ron, Merlin's troll. Hagrid, you've changed. Forbidden Forest package for all. After a few people left, Dumbledore and Anson revealed their figures. Illusion spells, of course. Professor McGonagall must know something. It's nice to be young. Huh? Professor, what do you know in the Forbidden Forest at this time? And you are not afraid that they will die inside? Dangbredo turned his head. In this case, Mr. Pendra, seems that you are also on a night tour, and you should also need to go to the Forbidden Forest. I'm not good at being a babysitter. No, it's just a mutual help between classmates, for the sake of me giving you those things. Funny, I didn't even say a few words to them. Not everyone is you willing to help the weak. Professor. Inside the Forbidden Forest, as in the original series, Harry eventually encounters Voldemort, who is sucking unicorn blood to regain his strength. Draco was scared away, and Harry fell to the ground. Voldemort, who wandered like a bat, approached little by little in the air. Well, suddenly, Anson lifted the illusion charm and held his wand in his hand. Anson, run, Harry shouted. Anson shook his head helplessly. Stupid enough. However, it is good to be able to grow up in that life environment with enough goodwill. Thunderbolt explosion. The red glow bent in the past. The shadow flew out. The thunderbolt exploded in the forest, and even the corpse of the unicorn was shattered, which showed its power. Banging explosions spread nearby. The barking of dogs is also approaching quickly. Falling apart, falling apart, falling apart. Enough, you damn little wizard can only do this trick. Do you know who I am? I'm God. There. Dark Lord. Anson stopped and looked at Voldemort. From the magic point of view, he has regained a certain strength, but from the true eye, he is weaker. Unicorn blood is not that delicious. You want to see something else? I satisfy you. Avada nibbles on big melons. Green light, shining in the forest. Voldemort's eyes narrowed. Damn it, are the little wizards so terrifying now? I graduated from Azkaban. Hurriedly raising his wand, 2 green rays of light crashed into the air. Chapter 027. This operation is estimated to be the first I wrote. The sound of moisture. The 2 green rays of light seemed to be flashing fire, and the two wrestled. Anson didn't find it that difficult. It's weird. I can only think that this is not Voldemort's real power, but Quirrell's power. But Quirrell was sucked up by Voldemort to maintain his existence. How much power can be left? In the end, quite a bit, but not much. Rumble. After a loud bang, the two retreated at the same time. Draw. Voldemort was stunned, and instantly furious. This is not allowed, absolutely not allowed. When the Demon King returns, he can't even clean up a little fart child. Avada nibbles on big melons. Anson smiled at the corner of his mouth, and pointed his wand to the side. Harry Potter, flying. Harry was confused, and was instantly grabbed by a force and flew in front of Anson to block Voldemort's death curse. Even Dumbledore, who was hiding on the side, did not react, and by the time he appeared, it was too late. The death curse hit Harry. After the screams, Harry was thrown aside by Anson, and Voldemort, fearful of the greatest white wizard, fled. However, in Anson's perspective, he is even weaker. Horcruxes? How did Dumbledore not react? Seeing that Harry was still breathing, he immediately figured out what was inside. Fate, isn't it, Professor? I said they will appear on their own. Yes, yes. When Lily countered Voldemort's death curse with the magic of ancient love, it bounced back to him, and at this time a piece of Voldemort's soul must have entered Harry's body. Suddenly looked up. Mr. Pendra, how do you know? If I say that everything is the guide of fate, do you understand, Professor? Destiny? You like to lie to the elderly. You're not an old man, you're the greatest white wizard. If someone else said it, I would believe it. I'm real, Professor. Harry? Professor? Harry, what's wrong with this? Hagrid arrived with a few small wizards, still holding a huge crossbow arrow. Let's go back first. He couldn't say that Harry was caught blocking a blow. Merlin's snot too crazy. He hates small children. Harry was put in the school doctor's office, and Anson was taken to the headmaster's room. I asked Madame Pomfrey. Harry is fine, magical. He should have survived the death charm for the second time. Lament. His gaze turned to the little wizard sitting elegantly across from him. Anson, can I call you that? Of course, Professor. How did you know for sure Harry had Voldemort's soul inside him? I mean, if I'm not sure, Harry will definitely die at that time. I never believed in any savior, Professor, and if you pay enough attention to his words, you will find that the mark on his forehead hurts more than once after entering the school. Who left the mark can only be who caused Harry pain. It is a simple guess. Anson looked up and said meaningfully, besides, doesn't the professor always say that death is just another great adventure? The implication was that Harry should thank him even if he died. Opened his mouth. Dumbledore said, you are not as cold as your words. At least in this coldness I see your kindness, which is good, Anson. Maybe. So, after the next day, the whole school was filled with Anson's use of Harry to fend off their mysterious wizard's spell. Some people even believe that Anson is the new generation of the Dark Lord, very much in line with the Slytherin personality. But the news was mostly from Gryffindor, and it might even have come from the mouth of their red-haired troll. After all, he needed some gaze that would attract attention in the absence of the savior. We know what's hidden down the 3rd floor. Seated Anson heard a word from beside her. It was Hermione. And then, we think, well, it was Harry and Ron who thought Snape wanted to steal the Philosopher's Stone, and Harry had seen Professor Snape's leg wound when the troll appeared. Moshent said, that kind of injury can only be caught by the 3-headed dog guarding their 3rd floor. So you're asking for my help? Hermione grimaced. I don't think they can deal with dark wizards who want to plot the Philosopher's Stone. Anson, you don't want to see something happen to your classmates, do you? Forehead. You crossed over, right? This tone is very good. Wow. Hermione, Do you know what the most powerful spell in the wizarding world is? Miss Beaver shook her head. The little wizard sitting on the side was also listening. This is the descendant of the Pendra family, and it is even possible to fight with the Dark Wizard in the Forbidden Forest. Even the senior year may not be as strong as Anson. Naturally curious. It has been said that the most powerful spell in the wizarding world is not the death-seeking charm, nor the heart-drilling charm, nor anything else. What's that? If you encounter an invincible enemy, then the most powerful spell to use is Dumbledore Flying. So it is a flying curse. The little head melon buzzed. Can it still be used like this? Anson raised his eyebrows and quipped, I agree with this. Get up and leave. Rumble. George, Merlin didn't have Kun. I think he's right. Fred, think about it. If Professor Dumbledore is summoned, who else will be the opponent? Guys, if we summon professors at the same time, will there be many professors? Will there be only one? Or will it be part of the professor's body? This was definitely said by a Ravenclaw student. Hey, you're disgusting. What? My proposal is very research-I've Quirrell office. In the dim light, Voldemort was hiding from drinking unicorn blood, and silver blood remained down his mouth. It seems that his appearance is much more hideous. These damn servants, they definitely don't know about me. But no one came to me, damn it. And the heir of the damned Pendra family, why didn't he die like his ancestors? Dumbledore, you can't win me. Harry? Oh, savior. The sound gets quieter and quieter until it disappears. 3 days later, Harry was discharged from the hospital. However, he can no longer face Anson's existence, a person who grabbed you in his hand to block the death curse. No matter how generous he is, I am afraid he will not forget. Sure enough, Slytherin people are not normal. Hermione, it stands to reason that you would be mortal if you fall under the death curse, but you are still alive. He's the savior. Hermione, Ron said loudly. Hermione rolled her eyes. I mean, there's something else we don't know here. Harry said suddenly. Tonight. It's tonight. What? We'll go to the 3rd floor tonight. The two looked at each other and looked at each other. Was there something wrong with Harry? Chapter 028. Late. The three little ones are only in action. Anson and Dumbledore were also in action, using the tunnels from Hogsmeade to Hogwarts, where a large number of wizards entered the school and waited. Dumbledore and Snape were quite nervous. Does it have to be this way? I mean, in case. Professor, did you try your best? In a word, Dumbledore was speechless. Quirrell is indeed innocent, but how the road should be taken and who meets whom cannot be controlled. But did he really try his best? This sentence touched Snape the most, and he snorted coldly. If he had done his best, a lot of misery would not have happened. But then again, who doesn't owe anything to whom? They couldn't ask Dumbledore to do anything. Maybe you're right. On the 3rd floor, after the three little ones went down, Hagrid took away the three-headed dog, which also scared and frightened the ordinary wizard. In the first level is a three-headed dog, which Hagrid laid out. The second level is clearly a flying broom to retrieve the key to the enchanted one. At first glance, it was Professor McGonagall's handwriting, magnifying the spell plus transforming the wings. You geese really know how to play. Dumbledore smiled. Exercise children. The 3rd level, Devil's Net. Well, this thing is quite valuable, but it can only be used for decoration here. Well, to put it bluntly, I am afraid that a few small ones will fall directly into it and fall to death. Very good, a very children's book. The 4th level, Wizarding Chess. Anson turned to look at the two professors on the side, as if to say that you guys are serious. Dumbledore looked up and pretended not to see. Snape still had a dead face and didn't pay attention to it at all. Damn boy, don't look at me like that. It's not my idea. Dumbledore. The 5th level. Well, there is a flame arranged in front of the potion. Well, this is still a bit of a sight, but it is clearly an ordinary flame. It is recorded that in the Middle Ages, some wizards were actively caught by moths and then enjoyed being burned at the stake to enjoy the shock of moths. So, what's the use of this level? A fire avoidance spell solves perfectly. Ha! Who is not a savior in this arrangement? Embarrassment is impossible to be embarrassed. Not everyone is like you, Mr. Pendra. Shrug. Below, Quirrell, controlled by Voldemort, suffers from the inability to obtain their Philosopher's Stone from the Mirror of Eris arranged by Dumbledore. Just about to force Harry. Mended. All petrified. Rapid confinement. Forbidden demon. In an instant, dozens of wizards jumped out, and even in Quirrell's terrified eyes, Dumbledore and Snape were among them. And that nasty little wizard. Dumbledore's old one still has a continuous output of mana. As soon as possible. I can't control it for long. Anson, speed up the arrangement of the forbidden magic array. Yes, young master. In less than 1 minute, 50 wizards had arranged the forbidden magic array, and Quirrell was controlled and fixed in the center. Snape looked at the right moment. Faint. Harry slammed to the ground, and Dumbledore was stunned. Shrug. He's not fit to watch what's next. Anson suspected he was doing it on purpose. Let's get started. Dumbledore spoke. Anson, are you sure this is feasible? After all, Quirrell is different from Horcruxes, and once it fails, then it's nothing more than death. Even if we don't make a move, he will be dead, Professor. Alas. Sigh. Indeed. Then, Awadin was the big melon. The death curse came out. Half an hour. Quirrell went from immobilization to wailing, as if in great pain, until a black shadow floated out, and the gloomy and cold aura spread throughout their underground secret room. Anson yelled, "Stop! Quirrell is flying!" With a swoosh, Quirrell's unconscious body reached everyone's feet. Looking at the black shadows floating in the air, and vaguely able to see some faceless and noseless images. "It's ugly." "Tom, meet again. Professor, you're old." "Yes, I'm old, but you're still you." "I have a long life. You can't kill me." Avada nibbles on big melons. "Boy, fly away directly. I'll be back." Anson pouted. "You think you're a grey wolf?" Snape frowned. "Why not kill him? I feel that the death-seeking spell is still useful to him. As long as we find a way to trap it, we will definitely be able to kill it." Dumbledore and Anson looked at each other. "No, Severus, we need a living Voldemort to solve him completely." "What do you mean?" "Anson, the game of the elderly. Let's go." Turn to look at the dozens of wizards on the side. "Go back and get paid with Mr. Spencer." "Thank you for your generosity, Master Pendra." "Wave your hand." Looking at the excited expressions of the wizards, Snape was curious. "What did you give them?" 3 meals a day, plus all kinds of magical materials, and countless gold gallons." "Huh? Kingaron? That thing wipes its ass now, right?" "Roll your eyes." "You are naturally not afraid of a potion master, and it is sky high to get a potion to sell at will, but other wizards do not have such skills. Especially in the current environment, it is not easy for wizards to live, not to mention pursuing something else. For this reason, the Pendra family's estate is deliberately convenient for wizards who have lost their jobs or are unable to live. The price is their knowledge and acting as thugs to keep the family business safe. Very cost-effective." Dumbledore suddenly asked, "I heard that you have been recruiting wizards?" "It's about 60% of native wizards." "Merlin's panties," Snape said seriously. "Voldemort did not have so many wizards to follow at his peak. I believe you will become the next generation of the Dark Lord. Professor, we have a deal, and you don't want to void it, do you?" The corners of Snape's mouth twitched. "Dumbledore, your deal? What is it?" "Professor, if you want to know, you might as well give me Fox to study." "Fox doesn't belong to me, Anson. Fox is intelligent." "So petty." "I guess it's not good to arrange an old man like this, but I heard that Duke's Bee's candy store has been acquired by you." "If anyone brought me candy, maybe I would forget about it." "Hello?" "No, you're the greatest white wizard. Professor, have you ever asked your students for bribes?" Dumbledore raised an eyebrow. "Of course not. I think it's the students' love for the professor." "I've had enough of you." "Disgusting." Snape flicked his magic robes away. The two looked at each other. Ha 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 ha. 3 days later, Quirrell woke up. "Thank you for your help, Master Pendra," said sincerely. "It's just a deal." "Yes, yes, but for me it is a new life. How much I fear death, how much I desire to live, and young. Master, you gave me the opportunity to live. The price is still high." For example, Quirrell's inevitable physical losses were serious, even because of the use of unicorn blood. He was cursed. Chapter 029. Professor Quirrell was discharged. It was clear that he was no longer a stumbling lecturer, but everyone suddenly felt that Professor Quirrell still had some hands. In particular, Harry, who was deliberately instructed by Dumbledore, experienced it the most. Why did the person who wanted to kill himself appear here? What happened in the first place? All this, I'm afraid only Anson knows. But he enjoyed the rumors on campus that his savior had shattered the fame of the Dark Lord's appearance. At least he didn't flinch, especially under Ron's processing. Several versions have appeared. Harry had approached Anson and said that Ron and they did not know that he was also involved in the Chamber of Secrets. Anson said, "Just be happy." The House Cup, under Dumbledore's care, ended the Slytherin streak and the championship went to Gryffindor. Continue. As if nothing had happened, except for some wizards. In the wizarding world, the 28 pureblood families had already reacted, but they were no longer able to return to the sky. Even the largest Malfoy family can only watch Pendra devour various industries, and other lonely families can only watch the industries they used to be able to eat and wait for death disappear. Even they need to sell their property to make ends meet, unless they are willing to live like moles. But where would a proud wizard be like this? They would rather choose to be a sewer bug in the wizarding world than enter the mole world. So, the clues of confusion began to appear. Inside Pendra Manor. "Young Master, at present, we control 90% of the material channels and nearly half of their diagon alley and overturned alley properties, and many wizards' real estate are under our control. The depreciation of the golden gallon has reached a peak, unemployment is still rising, and prices have risen nearly tenfold from when we appeared, especially in materials." "How many gold gallons do we have?" 500 million. "Spent 2.8 billion. It's a huge number." "Call Fudge to come." "There are also 28 pureblood families. It's time for us to enter." Gringotts. "Only by participating in the most direct financial system can we completely affect the wizarding world." Spencer laughed. "They're probably hoping that someone will show up who can put an end to this." Not surprisingly, wizards who break away from civilization will inevitably suffer from civilization, and this is just the beginning. In the evening, All the figures with heads and faces in the wizarding world were invited to Pendra's upcoming huge dinner. The Malfoys. What? Pendra held a banquet. Father, I'm going to. Narcissa looked at her husband. Draco has a good relationship with him. Maybe. I understand what you mean. Then Draco will go together, but you need to pay attention to one thing. It is not in the school now. The people represent a family. Don't worry, Father, I understand. On the other hand, Harry, who was at his aunt's house, received an invitation from the owl early, and because he couldn't make the decision, he could only ask Dumbledore. Dumbledore offered to go with the Weasleys. I need to meet them? Anson was a little reluctant. Spencer hummed and said, Young master, the quality of a nobleman is not only reflected in his gentlemanship, but also in a minimum respect for everyone, and I need you to keep this in mind. Sorry. The old housekeeper is still very principled about the cultivation of family heirs. At the gate of the manor, there are some wizards patrolling the surrounding area, and a small red dragon embroidered on the magic robe is the family symbol, which also means that these wizards have joined their Pendra family. Here it is. The carriage landed on the floor, with black, green and silver color logos, with a serpentine pattern. It was the Malfoy family. 3 people landed. Welcome Mr. Malfoy, Mrs. Malfoy and the Honorable Young Master Malfoy to Pendla Manor, Spencer said. Anson nodded. Hello, Mr. Spencer, Honorable Mr. Pendra, thank you for the invitation. Please come in. The 3 of them walked into the manor and scanned everywhere. Perhaps they felt the most than the other wizards. The wizard was guarding everywhere, and from time to time he could even see the presence of some Death Eaters, which was really bold. Also because of the importance attached to Pendra, Lucius and Malfoy had brought their families to the manor early in order to win favor. Now it seems that this step is the right step. Narcissa chuckled. I'm afraid there will be a lot of old antiques going to be deflated tonight. It's only a matter of time before you can't keep up with the times and get eliminated. Draco, you try to get along with him as much as possible. Draco raised his head when he heard his father's words. Anson and I are in the same dormitory, and we have a good relationship. Good. 3, please. At the entrance of the manor, there were wizards with 3 people entering, and in the hall, there was no so-called wine banquet, but it was arranged into a huge conference hall. Please. He found his own place and sat down, and the 3 chairs were labeled with corresponding names, with Lucius on the main throne, and Narcissa and Draco behind Lucius. Brow furrowed. It seems that the power of the Pendra family has been terrifying to such an extent that even several of them are present, one after another. Lucius even saw Harry and Potter sitting in the hall, but there were also many chairs that were empty, such as Black. The only remaining heir of the Black family is still in Azkaban, and I am afraid that he will not be able to attend this banquet. The property representing the Black family will be divided. The corners of his mouth are smiling. Interesting. In addition to the 28 pureblood families, some emerging families were also invited, all of them without exception, controlling all aspects of the local wizarding world. And figures of great influence, such as Dumbledore, for example, Gringotts representatives, leprechauns, for example, Minister of Magic, Fudge. When Anson and Spencer appeared, everyone subconsciously stood up. I don't know why, everyone looked at this 11-year-old child with an indescribable power. Noble and strong. Guys, inviting everyone here today is nothing else. Now that the price increase in the wizarding world has affected the normal development of the wizarding world, do you have any solutions? The gaze is ghostly, scanning everyone present. Dumbledore simply closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. HMPH, don't think that no one knows how this situation happened. You just say what you want to do. A one-eyed wizard said angrily. Spencer echoes back, Barty, Crouch. As Mr. Crouch said, I do have some solutions, but I don't know if you can accept it. Lucius, Mr. Pendra, please also say, everyone, what prices are like in the wizarding world today, and we need to make some changes. Anson looked at the goblin sitting on the side. I think that this financial accident is caused by the greed of the Gringotts goblins, and they should be banned. Chapter 030. So, Pendra's plot is Gringotts spent 3.3 billion gold gallons just for this? I have a bad premonition in my heart. This matter is about to talk about the war between wizards and goblins in ancient times. There will be no talk of house elves, but they were enslaved by wizards after defeat. These enslaved goblins were again cursed and controlled by magic, and only now do house elves exist that cannot resist wizards. As one of the conditions for defeat, the goblin gained control of the wizard's bank. It's weird. Number. Anson also felt weird. So did the wizard-goblin war win, or did the leprechaun win? If the goblin wins, the house elf will most likely not exist. If the wizard won, how could Gringotts be controlled in the hands of the goblins? Now Anson's sudden attack. The hearts of wizards jumped. This is more terrifying than what Voldemort. One is not good. It will be another battle between wizards and goblins, and it's a full-scale war in the wizarding world. Impossible. Gringotts has always been controlled by our goblins, and our contract with wizards has clearly confirmed all this. The arriving goblin jumped to his feet and snapped, apparently excited. Fudge, Mr. Pendra, I wonder if the method you mentioned that can help the wizarding world survive the current disaster has something to do with Gringotts. Yes, Mr. Minister, but unfortunately, It seems that you like to continue living in such an environment. Anson spread out his hand. I'm fine, after all, I have material channels, sales channels. If you want to make money and even support yourself and your family, I'm afraid you will have to leave the mainland. Young master, then we don't need to use Jingaran, Spencer said suddenly. Everyone paused. No gold gallons? At present, the Pendra family controls most of the industries and channels of the local wizarding world. If they do not use the golden gallon first, that means the golden gallon won't have any purchasing power on home soil. Into scrap iron. Merlin's toes. It was a disaster. It's a threat. Undoubtedly, the Pendra family will be able to do this, and no one will doubt it. But now, although the gold gallon is depreciating, it still has a lot of value. Even if you disassemble these gold gallons, the materials obtained alone are a lot of income. The problem is, it's wizarding currency, and that's the point. No, you can't let the homegrown gold gallon be useless. Malfoy coughed. Guys, why don't you hear what Mr. Pendra has to say first? There are only two options left for you now. 1. To ban Gringotts. I will rescue the market and bring prices back to their original levels. 2nd, use the wealth accumulated by your fathers and even grandparents to go to extinction with the wizarding world. Choose. Fudge looked at the Magic Law Enforcement Division sitting behind him. Shaking your head. There is no way. None of the current laws apply to Pendra's actions, and people are not afraid. More than 60% of wizards are employed by the Pendra family, and many of them identify Death Eaters as existence. Who is not afraid of such a force? Harry whispered. How about Anson? You can tell me the way. I think there will always be a way to get it done. Huh? Anson was a little stunned. What logic? Don't you understand what the situation is now? Mr. Potter, are you speaking on behalf of the Potter family or on your own? Harry looked at Dumbledore and Weasley, who were sitting on the side, and both of them shook their heads. Fudge, Mr. Pendra, Gringotts cannot be banned, you know. This concerns Gringotts around their world. Malfoy snorted coldly. If it weren't for their greed, they wouldn't have let things get to where they are today. Leprechaun, huh? Full of disdain. Leprechaun, hell, if he hadn't monopolized all the material channels, things would have come to this point. This is our problem. Also, remember that a magic contract you signed with us, Gringotts, can only be in our hands. Anson squinted. When the first Dark Lord Grindelwald took power, he didn't seem to touch Gringotts. When the second generation of the Dark Lord Voldemort was in power, he didn't seem to touch Gringotts. There is even a feeling of reluctance to move. Why? At first he thought it was a consensus, such as the public district statement. Now it seems that there is a problem with the Leprechaun. Suddenly laughed. Don't be angry. Our original intention is also to help the wizarding world through the disaster. Since we don't ban it, do you still want to use our methods? Fudge asked in a low voice. Mr. Pendra, I don't know what the solution is. The method is very simple, but if we don't make a move, you can't afford it. We need to enter Gringotts. At least we need to master the right to issue Golden Gallon. Anson pointed to the Goblin representative. In the future, the Goblin will continue to be responsible for the production of the Golden Gallon, and we will be responsible for their distribution. How? The Goblin breathed a sigh of relief. Issuance? What does it matter, though? Will you interfere with the internal management of Gringotts? Anson shook his head directly. Of course not. We are only responsible for issuing gold gallons. You make gold gallons. You manage Gringotts. We issue gold gallons. I interfere in any management. The Goblin rolled his eyes, obviously acquiescing. Spencer, who was standing behind, was speechless for a while. These wizards still suffered the loss of lack of culture. I have the distribution rights, and I don't let the market as much as you make. Then what you make is waste. In the same way, the number of gold gallons on the market will be held by his young master to death. The more and less of Jingaran will cause changes in the market economy, and once it comes and goes, the young master is to completely harvest the value of the local wizarding world. For it, there is a feeling of cheating children on sugar. Sign a magic contract. There are two important existences on the dense contract. First, the Pendra family and Gringotts are not subordinate. Gringotts will only be responsible for manufacturing the Golden Gallon and managing Gringotts' affairs in the future, and the release of the Jingalan will be the responsibility of the Pendra family for eternity. Second, the Pendra family has the right to increase and contract the price fluctuations of their native wizarding world. Moreover, there are testimonies of all those present today, which means that they will faithfully support this contract. Magic. He won numbness anyway. He decided. In the future, one of these wizards will be given a copy of Das Kapital. Blame the heart. Before everyone could come to their senses, Anson said something that made everyone breathless. Once prices return to normal, then all industries should be developed. But I'm afraid the Pendra family doesn't have so much energy to manage all the industries. I don't know who is interested. Deng Bully opened his mouth wide. Good operation. This is to divide the benefits. Just threatened everyone to agree to Pendra's operation, and then gave sweet dates. The question is, has anyone wondered if this is another honeypot with poison? Chapter 031. Deng Bully opened his mouth wide. Good operation. He suddenly reacted to what Anson's operation was. Good boy, good calculation. Good chicken, thief. I said 3 good things in my heart. First, a large amount of ancient gold gallons were exchanged for modern gold gallons and directly invested in the wizard market, causing a large amount of capital shock, resulting in their rapid depreciation of gold gallons. And because the gold gallon will continue to depreciate, it doesn't make any sense to hold it in your hand. So an operation to devour the wizarding industry appeared. When the golden gallon fell to a pole, Pendra stepped forward again, saying that he could pull the price back in order to ensure that these people can survive. These people agree without thinking. But unfortunately, most of the industries are now controlled by Pendra, and he will sell them at this time. It is equivalent to saying that the golden gallons that flowed into the market to buy the property on a large scale are back in Pendra's hands. If you add to the fact that Pendra will bring the value of the golden gallon back to its original position in the future, it is equivalent to Pendra. This kid doubled his net worth in an instant with one operation. There are also a lot of high-quality industries in hand. Hiss. He was indeed Slytherin. Someone has a problem. Close to 3.3 billion into the market. How to say that you sold the industry in your hand and returned to your hands? The wizarding world is divided into 2 types. One is family and the other is scattered. How much wealth can a scattered person hold? Not everyone is a potions master like Snape. Most of the wealth is basically in the hands of pure-blood families. In this way, once the value of the gold gallon recovers, it means that the industry can continue to bring them high-quality benefits, and now the gold gallon is not worth much. Don't buy and wait for someone else to buy it. Once they don't buy it themselves, they will be excluded from the interest group in the future, that's for sure. Some people also said, even if you don't buy it, don't you still have gold gallons in your hands? Anyway, a lot of money. Yes, there is a lot of money, but what is it that comes out to mix? It's the background, it's their power. You have only money, and at that time the industry was divided. What are you? No matter how rich you are, people will not bird you again. Watching the family become second-rate, it is impossible for an extremely proud pure-blood family to let the honor of their family fall to this point. It's impossible for them not to know what Anson's actions represent, hit you in the face, and you have to smile and greet you. Anson, this is a Yang conspiracy, a forced Yang conspiracy. Immediately, a large number of people expressed their willingness to buy, and even Potter was called by Dumbledore, saying that he wanted to buy back the ancestral property. You can see the benefits behind it. Anson nodded. Very good. It seems that everyone knows what this means, but to buy it, I have a condition. Hold up a finger. Lucius, Mr. Pendra, I don't know what the conditions are. The materials and magical items produced by the property you purchased need to make half of the material supply contract with me. Well, Frau again. However, no one can help it. At least half of them were left to eat some soup, and besides, people didn't pay for it. What do you do if you annoy him and give you another price swing? Spencer. The wizarding world is so good at making money. In his eyes, wizards are already equal to the model of people who are stupid and have a lot of money. But when a large number of industries were completed, they were dumbfounded. Weren't these properties what they sold to Pendra in the first place? They discovered. Now it's back in their hands. The problem is that their gold gallons have also shrunk significantly. What went wrong? Everything is normal trading. Young master, the family can't pile up the gold. Spencer wiped his sweat. The property was delivered, and the families naturally had to hand over the golden gallon to their Pendra family, which led to the current situation. The boxes placed in the manor are all gold gallons and are densely packed. Have you counted? After counting, plus the family that has not yet delivered the gold gallon, our income this time has exceeded 6.5 billion gold gallons, and there are still many high-quality industries in hand, such as the Dragon Farm, the Fantastic Beasts Farm, and the potions production base, among others. Poof, ha ha ha. Anson couldn't help but laugh. If I remember correctly, they still called me stupid and rich in their beginning. It has more than doubled back and forth, and there are still a lot of industries in hand. On the contrary, the family industries have remained unchanged back and forth, and there have been few Jinjialong, and some family businesses have been completely absent. For example, the Black family and some lonely families. Of course, this transaction also gave the Pendra family a close basis for cooperation with some families, such as the Malfoy family. This character who sees the wind makes the rudder skill point to the full level, but it is not that simple. It's a good gun. Just take advantage of it. With him, everything that involves the interests of the Pendra family will involve the interests of the Malfoy family. Whoever dares to stretch out his hand, Lucius will inevitably turn into a hyena and pounce and bite. Well, what happened to the layout of the other wizarding worlds? It's slow, they're more xenophobic. Everywhere is xenophobic, and this is an old tradition in the wizarding world. It's okay to slow down. Don't show chicken feet. They also need to undergo a baptism of capital, like the local wizarding world, to grow up. Spencer smiled and said, young master, it seems that they need to prepare their tuition fees. Of course, I just don't know if they can hold on. Everything is ready, we almost have to go back, and things are arranged here. Quirrell hit the back and came out. The temperament of depression is not what a secondary school teenager. It's that he's cursed by a unicorn. Not life-threatening though, but a little weird. may die early. Quirrell is now very inclined to their talent of black magic. Simply put, he uses black magic is very good. The spooky unicorn curse. How is it like rewarding people? Young master. Well, the body is fine. Almost all right. After we leave, you will be responsible for the family business, basically according to their method I gave you, and do it well. Quirrell will definitely not disappoint the young master. Hopefully. Next, the Daily Prophet reported on the recent operations of the Pendra family, and the economic means of whale devouring were too detailed to be written about. Smack tongue. Envy. Someone who tried to replicate the methods of the Pendra family found that there was not enough principle and that the market had regenerated a new order. The benefits have been redistributed and there is no chance to enter. And after Anson said that he would come out to bail out the market began to pick up. As large amounts of gold gallons were restricted from flowing into the market, gold gallons began to slowly appreciate. It is worth mentioning that the Pendra family opened a huge mall in Diagon Alley with a simple name, Pendra Department Store. Discounts on openings. It basically includes all kinds of goods that will be used in the wizarding world. So, the golden gallons scattered in the hands of ordinary wizards flowed back into the hands of Pendra again. At this time, people also began to compare Savior Harry with Savior Pendra. It turned out that this Nima is not an order of magnitude. Chapter 032. All that newspapers basically reported on the opening of Pendra Department Store. It is also hyped up on discounts. For example, students and women and people from the Ministry of Magic are all 90% off, and some can even get 8% off. Discount? This was largely non-existent in Diagon Alley before. It greatly attracted wizards to come in and consume. Mom, can we not buy it? Anson said that in the future, the gold gallon will appreciate in value, and the price will be as cheap as before. Molly glared at her son and pulled her daughter to walk inside the department store. The splendor is even more beautifully furnished than Gringotts, and there are even tastings and lounges, as well as their favorite discount drawer. She can't miss it. No one tried to persuade her. Hurry, you said that you are also a classmate with Mr. Pendra. Why is the gap so big? Ron. On the side, Fred and George cried with sad faces. It's over. It's gone. Our trick workshop is gone. Our plan came to naught. In front of the two, there was a huge trick workshop shop, and even a candy store. Well, most of the shops operating in Diagon Alley basically have branches in department stores, but they have to take a cut. Opposite the department store, Gringotts. Anson stood in the office on the top floor of the department store and watched the crowd below, and was satisfied. Quirrell, young master, although the specific income has not been counted, almost all wizards have come today. Very good, don't be sloppy in security and cargo delivery. This department store is very important to us. Understood. Stand respectfully behind Anson. By the way, how is Professor Snape's store? Quirrell envious. Almost as soon as it hit the shelves, it was robbed. Professor Snape is a potions master after all. Good. This old bat was simply wasting his talent and life in the past. How can he do it without working? What about the invitation to Mr. Weasley? He is still hesitating, but it should not be difficult. After all, the conditions of the Weasley family are not very good. Speed up. If not, dig his 2 graduated sons into our factory to work. Spencer said, young master, you forgot, Charlie is already working as a dragon trainer in our dragon farm. Then there is only one Bill who is still working as a spellcaster in Gringotts. Is he that important, young master? Arthur and Weasley were just employees of the Mull Artifact Abuse Division at the Ministry of Magic, and he couldn't figure out why Anson cared so much. Mr. Quirrell, what do you think is the most valuable thing about the Pura Blood family? Bloodline? Anson turned to look at him and hurriedly looked down. No, it's knowledge. The Weasley family has inherited a part of the lost knowledge of alchemical magic, and in the absence of Nick and Mel, the Weasley family is still useful to us. I understand. I will speed up the invitation to enter the Pendra department store, young master. Please rest assured. Put down your coffee cup. With a snap of the fingers, the opera sound that echoed on the top floor disappeared after a snap. Young master, are you going back? Yes, Mr. Spencer, we've been out for a long time. Are the personnel selections over? All have signed unbreakable oaths and various contracts to guarantee their loyalty without nonsense, and the items are ready. Then go back. In the secret room of Pendra Manor, a little elf and 50 wizards stand here. The elf, named Hawk, was purchased from a Pura Blood family and now serves the Pendra family. Are you all ready? All have already prepared, young master. A large number of magical items have been carried by magical animals in chests with traceless, stretching charms, and even a large number of magic books. Gently stroke the ring with a dragon symbol on your hand. Airplanes. A space appeared, and everyone seemed to be transfigured by a phantom, distorted and disappeared into the black hole, without any fluctuations. Wait for the light again. It's back to the Marvel world. Everyone found that they had arrived in another secret room. What was the door key? Spencer smiled and said, everyone, welcome to Avalon Castle, where the Pendra family has lived for generations. Other words. That's right. You remember King Arthur's residence. Anson, take them to familiarize themselves with the environment here. and talk to the security personnel to let them set up the formation. Understood. The current castle of Avalon is not protected by magic, and despite its large area, ordinary technological means can still find it. It's just hard to get in. All protection, safe and guarding. All protection, safe and guarded. Disperse the enemy. Super armor protection, solidity. Disperse enemies. Super armor protection, solidity. Disperse enemies. A curtain of light gradually formed over Avalon, and completely enveloped the waters of Avalon. Yes, water and not just castles. In the future, Anson also wants to raise some magical animals near the castle. Raise your wand. Super armor protection, solidity. Disperse enemies. Anson's addition made the wizards look sideways again. With huge funds and various identities, I'm afraid not many people will notice that the young master of their family is also a excellent wizard. This magic fluctuation is even more powerful than them. Merlin's nose. The enchantment arrangement is complete. Young master, it will take a long time to complete the transformation of the castle, as well as their transformation of the nearby water system and so on. It's okay, you guys just take your time. Hard work. The wizard was a little shy, praised and shy. Not every wizard advocates killing, and killing obviously cannot fully represent the wizarding world. More wizards like them, while superior to the mole world and wanting to pursue more profound magic, are cautious. Can fantastic beasts survive here? Young master, the nearby water system and dense forest are very suitable for their survival, and there is no discomfort. Well, the border must be dealt with. Understood. By the lake, there are wizards putting some mermaids. These mermaids are not good stubble. They have a certain wisdom, and they can prevent attacks from underwater in the future. With magic contracts and enchantments, they won't spread anywhere else. Step-by-step transformation of Avalon Castle. In the future, this will be the home base of Marvel. But suddenly, Anson felt like he was being spied on. Young master, what's wrong? Hall Elf looked up and asked. Take out your wand. Anson's actions caused the wizards around him to quickly surround and protect him. Anson frowned to the side. Fall apart. Bang. A hole was punched out of the ground, but nothing appeared. Boom. The space shattered like glass, and a burly figure came out of it, looking like it was palpitating. Carmitage's secret mage. You can call me Wang. You came? Wild. Newborn magicians need to register. I'll take a look. Wild. Chapter 033. Thank you for your monthly passes and flowers. Thank you. God's wild magician. Without waiting for Wang to continue, another yellow spot of light rapidly expanded, and Anson knew that it was any door of Carmitage. A bright bald head walked out, still with a smiling face. Like a big daisy in bloom, face a group of wizards with small sticks in their hands. Yi consciously withdrew his wooden fan, thinking that it was some kind of etiquette from Anson's side. Supreme Mage? Well, you know me. Anson waved his hand. You guys go first. Mr. Spencer, please come to the highest specification. To feast the Supreme Mage, and Wang, Hall, you go and deal with it. Obey, young master. 3 people standing by the lake. This is a species of another dimension, right? Wang pointed to the mermaid underwater and said. Anson nodded. Yes. But, dimensions? Yimi smiled. You don't know? Please also make it clear. You have a dimensional breath in you. To be precise, you should be considered wild in our system. The newborn dimensional lord, or dimensional demon god. Dimension? Demon god? Suzerain, frowning tightly. Could it be the rules of magic? Looks like you get it. It seems that there are more things in the wizarding world that he does not understand, and King Arthur's book collection is probably not so simple. A true eye was thought by Yi that Anson had become a wild dimensional demon god. What about the rest? So where are you coming? Tell me some precautions on your mysterious side. It's nothing, just come and see. Furuichi didn't care about Anson's reaction. This is normal. After all, this is a wild dimensional demon god. It's still very good to grow up later. Anson asked carefully, if I attack ordinary people, then shoot it. You don't care? I mean, ancient mage, you are the most powerful magician on Earth, and you are also responsible for the security of Earth. I advocate not getting involved in the disputes of ordinary people, and you will understand this in the future. Spencer came over. Young master, 2 mages, the meal is ready. Please. A variety of exquisite magic ingredients were prepared on the dining table, most of which were freshly slaughtered. This is? As soon as he took a bite, Wang was surprised. Meat full of energy can even nourish and strengthen the body, although the effect is not very ideal, but if it is eaten for a long time, it will also play a very powerful role. Spencer smiled and said, it's fresh dragon meat. Sir, dragon? Wang shouted. Yi, it seems that the development of that dimension is good, and there are creatures like dragons, which are very powerful. Right? Anson shook his head. I have multiple dragon fields. What is the dragon field again? It is a place dedicated to raising dragons, and after cultivation, they are slaughtered, sold, eaten, made into potions, and so on. Koichi, king, is the dragon in their memory not the same thing as the dragon in Anson's mouth? Think about the dragon that is eating the world tree, even if it is an ancient bear. You must be careful. think of the dragon Shulao in Kunlun. Well, this is a bit crotch-pulling, but at least it won't be simple. How did he get to him and become meat on the table? Anson snapped his fingers. Hall, a house elf, appeared in a small suit instantly, and the king's eyes lit up, which was very powerful magic. Respected young master, is there any order for Hall to do? Go and dispose of some of the dragon's ingredients, give it to the two mages, and wait to take it away. Okay. Return to Carmitage. There is also a huge meat door behind the king's back, which can make Carmitage's secret. Mages a little confused. The same is true of Koichi. When did the dragon drop so much? Young master, are you alright? Spencer was a little worried. I had never heard of a magician similar to a young master in this world before, but now, people have appeared, and they were found accurately. It can be seen that what is represented behind it is not simple. It's okay, that mage is a rare strong person in this world, even if it is a rare one in the entire universe, but she is righteous and orderly. The implication is that don't worry too much. Instead, they need to worry about forces from darkness, such as Mephitos in hell. Wizards like them have wonderful souls for Mephitos. However, since in the mouth of Gyuyi, he has become a dimensional lord in a sense in their wizarding world. He wouldn't think that Gyuyi would be wrong. Then, there should be no danger for the time being, and besides, is the soul of the wizarding world controlled by him? It's worth looking into. 3 days later, the basic transformation of the outer environment of Avalon has been completed, and all that remains is the transformation of the castle, which is a big project. Young master, the invitation letter has been obtained. An invitation was sent. This is an invitation about Stark Industries, to put it bluntly, to sell Stark Industries new weapons. Jericho missiles. Young master, this two-skinned wine banquet is estimated to be as fun as last time, or we better not go. Spencer was quite critical of this one. After all, Stark's record was known to the entire Marvel Earth. It is said that the cover girls are taken care of in business. Spencer was afraid that his young master would be taught badly. It's okay, go check it out. The plane arrives at Americana, and he is also curious about the magical Stark controller, whose head is said to be cursed by knowledge. Very clever Yoko. Although the last meeting was not very friendly. I heard that recently, this person who should be about to be fooled by his own second-in-command went to the desert to sell missiles, and when the time comes, he should be able to make a stake in Stark. Banquet. Celebrities were present. There were many supermodels and stars, and the heads of various groups and even the military came to support Stark's face, and he was naturally angry. Who is he? I remember I didn't invite a small child. Is he an adult? Not afraid of his parents punching him in the ass? The opening is poisonous tongue. Pebo looked at the tablet and frowned slightly. What's wrong? Take a look. Handed over the tablet. Pendra? Isn't that the kid from last time? We do have a record of issuing invitations, but not directly to Pendra, but to a British arms company. Raise an eyebrow. It seems that this company is owned by people. Just now, Jarvis sent the company's equity structure, and although it was hidden through many ways, it was still discovered by Jarvis. This little-known Pendra actually mastered a company with more than 30 billion knives, but he had never heard of it. Walk over with Popo. Anson is still secretly looking at other people's daughters-in-law, who expected that there would be 2 more figures around him. Wide eyes and small eyes. Hello Mr. Spencer, Mr. Pendra. Popo greeted to avoid embarrassment. Spencer raised his eyebrows. Hello Mr. Stark. Hello beautiful Miss Potts. The brilliance is still there. Same. Hello. Reached out and shook the reluctant Stark. Anson, you don't want to show off your female companion with me, do you? Stark began to hate children. Chapter 034. You little fart knows something. But if you have the ability to raise the flag, I can introduce you to a few. Spencer's eyes narrowed. Sure enough. Anson, it looks like a person, but it has a mouth. Stark took a sip of his drink. It's not interesting, although eat and drink. Count mine. Go straight away and hug the left and right. Pebo gave an apologetic look. Sorry. He's not usually like this. 2, please let me know if you need anything. Of course, Miss Popo. The two sat on the side watching Yin Yang Yanyan, and a group of so-called high society doing obscene things, and it seemed that everyone had become accustomed to it. In the corner. Found it? Popo still shook his head. No, but I found some other companies. It seems that there are their shadows. Tony. The origin of this person should not be simple. I know. But now the wine banquet is more important. Anson's arrival didn't attract anyone's attention, not even Tony's eyes. Compared to Anson's net worth that can be found, it is still a little inferior to him. Maybe which young master went out to see the world. The first meeting between the two was not successful, and the second time ended hastily. Anson thinks so. Perhaps his smart brain has given Stark a sense of superiority that can see everything, and of course, he can be proud in front of other people. Anson kind of understood why Strange would not deal with this one in the future. Stinky fart. Invincible. Stark is leaving? Yes, young master. We found out that he needs to go to the desert to sell Jericho missiles. It is said that it is a show, and it has already been decided by the Mika military. Spencer, if this single is negotiated, it is expected to bring billions of dollars to Stark. Get ready and mobilize funds to short Stark. Young master, at present, Stark is growing very well, and because of the appearance of their Jericho missile, Stark is very close to the military, so it's not reasonable to short, right? Anson said inscrutably. What if Stark is missing? That's really going to plummet in stock prices. Stark is a weird company, and despite the existence of a large research team, the soul has always been Stark himself. If at this time the news of his disappearance or death comes out, it is bound to plummet. The young master won't know anything, right? Spencer asked in a low voice. Young master, you don't want to kidnap him, do you? It's just a little verbal inaction. No, but this is his life. Magical magic again? Ha ha ha. Mr. Spencer, yes, it's magical. Without Stark's appearance, there would be no things behind, and some people say that Stark opened the heroic age. In the words of Future Vision, Stark gave those superpowers in the secret an object of comparison. Originally, everyone tried their best to hide themselves, and as soon as Stark admitted that he was Iron Man, well, it was equivalent to sending out an invitation to play together. However, these matters can be left to the family business. The two arrived at the sanctuary of Newyo. Bang bang bang. After a knock on the door, a mage with a broken arm and a beard opened the door. The eyes were slightly puzzled. Excuse me? Hello, Your Excellency. We would like to visit the Supreme Mage, or Master King, and borrow any door of the sanctuary. Supreme Mage? King? His eyes were shining as he looked at the two. The old man did not have any magic fluctuations, but this young man was like an abyss. The magic seems to have no end in sight. There is no doubt that there is a fake. Please come in. I need to communicate with Carmitage. Of course. For a long time, Master Daniel said that he could go to Carmitage. As soon as he passed through any door, the king was already waiting here. Hey, Master Pendra, Mr. Spencer, meet again. Rian, Master Wang. Anson smiled gently. Sure enough, it was better to communicate with the mage simply. Everyone had seen the world, unlike some people who only showed off how good their kidneys were. Someone in the desert are definitely jealous of me. Wang, I'm sorry, the Supreme Mage traveled to Asgard, and we don't know when we'll be back. Will the Supreme Mage still travel? Wang shrugged. Of course, but it's rare, and you guys don't rush either. I thought the Supreme Mage was going to keep watch over Carmitage all the time. After all, some guys are not very good. Ha ha ha. They don't want to storm the extraterrestrial spell barrier. Wang is confident. Spencer turned his head. Master Wang, is there a network here? Of course, we are not without contact with civilization. There is a wireless network available. After giving an apologetic look, Spencer began to deal with things. Wang was a little curious. What is he? Oh, buy some Stark's shares, maybe make some money. Tut. Another rich man. Sitting down, talking. Carmitage's magical side power is called spells, and they are also called secret mages, not magicians. There is a fundamental difference from wizards, and if you really want to compare, it can be seen that Carmitage has developed farther. The development of the wizarding world, although it has also taken a long time, is still very limited. Not to mention high and low, each has its own advantages. For example, the secret mage borrows the power of others to cast spells, and he will pay it back in the future. But not everyone has the ability of Supreme Mage Gyu, and they can only borrow but not pay it back. Once other mages die, their souls and powers will inevitably be taken away by the object of their borrowed power. This is unacceptable to Anson. Wizards' magic is different, using energy that exists in the universe itself. However, according to Gyu, there may be some similarities between the two, and the magic power they say they use may only exist in the wizard world. Just like now Anson uses magic, the source of magic is also that world. It is somewhat similar to the method of borrowing power from the occult mage. It's just that they wizards don't have to pay back. At least that's what he understood for now. But compare Dumbledore's words, death is just another great adventure. There may still be something after the wizard dies. Wait for later research. Branches of the world tree? Wang was a little stunned. Anson nodded. Yes, you also saw that the medium we use to cast magic is this type of item, and I thought that the branches of the world tree should help me. Wang scratched his head. There is no branch of the world tree in Carmitage's vault. After all, it is useless to us. But I can take you if you need it. Anson's eyes lit up. To the world tree? Wang laughed. Don't be surprised, Master Anson, the world tree may be difficult for ordinary people, but it is not mysterious for us. Raise an eyebrow. Chapter 035. Mr. Obadiah, the other party has already bought most of the shares that have flowed out of our market. Find out who it is? Popo clicked a few times on the tablet, and a detailed message appeared on Obadiah's computer. Pendra, where is this person? British. It seems that there is still a deep background, and more have not been found. Maybe it's just to hold our shares, you know. Stark never disappoints. Popo shook his head directly. No, the other party is shorting. Short? Obadiah couldn't react a little. This person is a fool, right? Leave him alone. HMPH, hillbillies who don't know where to come out. Giving up Stark is their dumbest decision they've ever made in their lives. Faced with this statement, Popo did not know how to say it well. Although she is responsible for Stark, in reality, many things cannot be done. For example, now, even if she thinks that Pendra's short selling is abnormal. 3 days later. I don't know where the news came from. Stark is missing in the desert. This news caused Stark Industries' stock price to plummet, and even Obadiah could not stop their plummeting stock price in various maintenance. Shareholders are well aware that Stark Industries once lost Stark as the soul. That's no different from the second-tier dealer Hammer Industries. Hammer. So, Mr. Spencer made a fortune on Carmitage. Spencer uses wireless remote control for various companies in the industry. When the stock price plummets to an extreme, then buy a lot of Stark's shares. Sir, didn't you say Stark was missing? Still in the desert. Maybe he may not come back. Spencer, you just have to do what you have to do. Got it. For several days, Stark Industries' stock price continued to fall, even if the military started to control it. Obadiah was slapped in the face, but unfortunately he can't care about this now. What are these companies? I don't know. Only the gloves that are mostly controlled by British capital can be found. As for the guys behind it, oh. Fury looked at the information. Pendra? Gone. No, unless we can go into the UK's secure database. Frowning in the darkness, keep watching. He had an intuition that the surname Pendra would not be simple. Cole Anson closed the door and went out, and Fury looked at a document taken from under their table, hindered by the birth of the Hulk, and all kinds of weird character data. He is very optimistic about this plan, and it is also very stimulate. Now that someone wants to someone he is optimistic about, this secret agent leader will not believe in any accidents and coincidences. On the other side, being led out of any door by Master Wang, Anson's true eyes saw a huge tree towering between the universes. Huge, vast, deep. All kinds of complex breaths and even fluctuations flow. In other mystical understandings, our Earth also belongs to the structure of the world tree, and it is not surprising that we can see the world here. Wang motioned for Anson to step forward. There is nothing unusual about touching the world tree. It's just like an ordinary tree, except it's too huge, a little hard, very hard. Wang, it's not like ordinary trees, because it has been washed by energy for a long time. It is very hard. If you don't have other means, I'm afraid you won't be able to get it. I'll try. Take out the magic wand of the purple shirt wood and the dragon's heart tendon, separate left and right. A flash of light quickly struck past. It's okay. Falling apart. More powerful spells. The branches of the world tree are still fine. Falling apart, falling apart, falling apart. Wang held his hand. Look, I'll just say it's hard. I still don't believe it. The shadow is not fronted. The strong mana fluctuations even moved even the king mage, but except for a little mark on their world tree, it was still solid. Not capable of cutting by conventional forces. After thinking about it, he withdrew his wand. Instead, he rubbed the ring on his right hand. Scold. The ring suddenly turned into a grey sword, and there was a coldness in the simplicity. Zheng. The white light flashed, and a branch seemed to have been cut by the king's sword through the cream, so easy that Anson couldn't believe it. Looking at the sword of the king, so sharp. Wang grew his mouth. Oh, it's amazing. This is Sword of the King. Sword of the King? Is it the one I know? Seeing Anson nodding, Master Wang became more and more shocked. Yes, Pendragon. So this self-considered wild mage is a descendant of King Arthur? 1 sword, 2 swords, 3 swords. Let's go, Master Wang. It's hard. The corner of Wang's mouth twitched, watching Anson as if he was going into the mountain to cut firewood and tying the branches of the world tree, and even some of them were very thick, until it is collected into the inside of the Sword of Kings that turns into a ring. Wang muttered, this is not scientific, but it's magical. Anyway, everything that can't be explained is magical, right? That's right. Hopefully, the teacher won't say anything about him when he comes back. The existence of the world tree is important to all 9 realms. Fortunately, Anson only took a part, and with the sharpness of the king's sword, Anson could completely cut the world tree if he wanted to. Open Ragnarok in Asgard early. Odin's one-eyed. He gave Master Wang another dragon that had been slaughtered, and it was called a courtesy. From Carmitage back to Mika, Anson has been experimenting on the branches of the world tree since his return. This thing should not be simple. For example, its hard properties. If he remembered correctly, the Polon Thor's Meow hammer was made by the branches of the world tree. It can support the hammer made by Thor wielding the neutron star compression, which shows the endurance. It also shows its ability to transmit magic and mysterious power. He had exchanged an ancient gold giron for some of Ollivander's knowledge of making wands, though perhaps not all of it. But it was enough for him. Not to mention that there is actually this part of knowledge in Hogwarts, and it is also found in King Arthur's collection. How to make a special wand has become something that Anson is very interested in now. What is good to use for the battle core? The dragon's nerves, dragon horns, and dragon heart tendons are undoubtedly very suitable for him. But the dragons in the wizard world are somewhat out of grade and seem to be unworthy of the world tree. A wand, the core determines how efficiently the wizard uses the spell. The body of the wand determines the strength and characteristics of the wand itself. Fantastic beasts. Fantastic beasts? If he remembers correctly, there are currently several more precious species on Marvel Earth. There are no born celestial god groups Tiamat, Yuan-Eater Beast, and Divine Dragon. Chapter 036. He didn't know if Tiamukan of the Celestial God group existed. After all, with his current ability, he couldn't touch these things, and he couldn't beat it. The Yuan-Eater Beast should be in the shield. 3 Curved Wing Building. Shenlong has one hanging in New York, and Kunlun also has it. But he didn't know where the specific location of the Shenlong was, so he still had to find their Yuan-devouring beast. As a result, there is a little young man hanging around outside the Sankwing building these days. Hey, what are you looking for? I've seen you here for days. Anson almost fell asleep sitting in the chair outside, and when he heard the voice, he raised his head, so big bald. Well, people just have a higher hairline. Well, it's just nice to look at the scenery. Anson shrugged, his eyes dodging. My name is Cole Anson. If you need help, you can tell me. I am still familiar with the neighborhood. You work here? Pointing to the 3 curved wing building behind it. This place is built on an independent island, and there are sergeants stationed outside, which is not an ordinary place. Of course, but you'd better not get too close, you know. Anson, okay. Upstairs. Fury took the telescope and looked down. He's been out there all the time? Well, there are still a lot of things in his hand. It is some meat food. Looking at his activity, trajectory and behavior, he should be looking for something. Cole Anson, what exactly do you say he is? Anyway, a person worth hundreds of billions will not come here to find anything, and besides, there is nothing here for him to find. Fury's brows furrowed. You mean he knew we existed? Not excluded. Keep watching, don't get too close until you know his specific identity. And Stark found it? Not yet. Cole Anson thought of something, by the way, that Mr. Spencer has once again bought Stark's stock in large quantities, more than before. Already 5%. The 5% is not a small amount even in Stark Industries' ownership structure. Is it really just a business act? No matter what you want to do, the Mika military, who has a close relationship with Stark Industries, will help him test something first. 2 days. For 2 days, Anson squatted outside the 3 curved wing building, until he saw a yellow figure on the grass by the river, and he was instantly happy. Goo! The orange cat turned to look at him, raised his foot and was just about to leave, instantly attracted back by a special smell. Holding a piece of dragon meat in his hand, the orange cat seemed to smell something good, and his pupils were dilated. Horror all began to flow out. Meow, meow, meow. The voice was eager to eat the dragon meat in Anson's hand. Sure enough, no pet can stand the sound of sighing. Placed on the ground, the orange cat pounced in an instant. Anson stroked it, and there were huge weird rules on the orange cat under the realize. He didn't understand. However, it can already be determined that this orange cat is a Yuan-Eater beast. There are not many matter-eaters in the universe, and their stomachs are connected to a different space, which can swallow many things without affecting themselves. You can even spit it out repeatedly. Swish. The mouth of the Yuan-Eater orange cat instantly opened wide, and several tentacles stretched out to roll out of thin air, and the dragon meat disappeared. The eyes looked at Anson again. Paused for a moment. Follow me. The dragon meat tube is enough. Orange cat, meow. I don't understand. If you come with me, I will give you dragon meat, and if you agree, you will call twice. Meow, meow. Pick it up and feed it another piece of dragon meat. Just out of the grass, 2 large bald heads reappeared. Mr. Pendra, isn't it okay to abduct someone else's pet? This is your cat? Point to the orange cat. It's called Goo-oo, and I raised it, Fury admitted shamefully. Anyway, first determine their dominance. Anson rolled his eyes. Then you call it. If it nods I will believe it. Fury snorted and turned his head to the Yuan-Eater beast with a flattering look like a cat slave. Goo, honey once, daddy. Fury, tell this kid if we know each other. Meta-eater. Goo, you don't want her to see you when she comes back, do you? Well, this sentence made the Yuan-devouring beast move slightly, and it was just a moment, and the thought of the dragon meat devouring Yuan beast in Anson's hand was extremely honest. You tried to lie to me. Anson smiled. Look, you have nothing to do with it. Cole Anson. But at least it's not yours either. Not necessarily. Goo, you said you're not mine. Meow. Fury, Cole Anson. They knew that the Meta-Eater, especially Fury, had changed a little beyond his expectations. When they saw Anson interacting with the Yuan-Eater beast upstairs, the two had already run down at a speed of 1 second and a kilometer, and this guy was about Captain Marvel. Have to pay attention. Under Fury's thinking, the Yuan-Eater beast is also a rare power, which can be regarded as a whole card. Definitely can't let Anson take it away like that. Click. A pistol was taken out and pointed at Anson. Sir, I suspect that you are engaged in terrorist activities and abducting other people's pets. Now, please put down the orange cat in your hand and come with me. Cole, so what? He's just a kid, isn't that right? Oh, shit. Fury was just about to reply, but suddenly found that there was a strange touch in his hand, and looked down. When did the gun he was holding become a poisonous snake? The hissing and spitting letters, even the cold touch is extremely real. In a panic, he threw it out, but when the snake landed on the ground, it turned into a pistol. His face was full of doubts. tricks, magic, or illusion? Anson looked up. Nick, Fury, Marjala Farkman, do you think you are the only superhero in their world? Do you really understand the world? Who the hell are you? Anson, Whiteman, full of black lines, not waiting for reaction. Syllable. The house elf instantly appeared beside Anson, and after the arm was put up, one person, one elf and one orange cat disappeared in the twist. Magia fake. Fury was furious. Check for me. What does Iron Batman mean? Shock their worldview. Cole Anson. Sir, clear all the surveillance that can be photographed here today. Don't leak out. In addition, you personally go and find out what the short creature that just appeared is. Fang K. Anson's sentence was clearly thought up by him not long ago in order to recruit Stark to become a person in the Avengers. How could this person? Chapter 037. Inside the estate, after removing a few tail hairs from the Yuan Eater that ate the dragon's flesh and adding them to the branches of the world tree using the method of making wands, a new wand was born. Hold it in your hand. Well, the eyes are bright. This wand has powerful, increased mana output, space magic bonuses, and greed and loyalty. Something interesting. The characteristics of the front are blessed by the world tree and the hair of the Yuan Eater, and the latter is born from the combination of the two. Flotation charm. The magic wand flicked, and the four claws of the Yuan devouring beast on one side kept gouging in the air as if it was swimming, and the mouth was still chewing on the dragon meat. Standard foodie's cat set. The magic is really amplified. Collect all the remaining world tree materials, although he no longer uses them for now, but these materials are for wizards. Simply irresistible. Just like this wand in his hand, if the old wand in Dumbledore's hand did not have a function that he did not know, the two should not be much different. Of course, he hadn't used the Elder Wand, just looked at the judgment that Dengbray had used a few more times. It also illustrates the superior performance of the world tree as a magic wand material from their side. Drop the Matter Eater. Reach up and make a gurgling sound. Spencer suddenly opened the door and walked in. Young Master, Homeland Strategic Defense and Resources. Well, who was coming? Please come in. Since he showed up, it was not difficult to find him with Fury's ability. It was not strange. In the hall of the manor, Fury was even more angry when he saw Anson coming with the cat in his arms. This is my cat. Ha! Don't mess around. This is my cat. Fury, well, even if it's your cat, do you know who it is? You mean the identity of the golem devouring beast? You see, you know it's called Goo. It must be my cat. Enough. Also acting. The head of the agent is very bad. Fury shrugged. What are you using on me? Is the means of transforming snakes a trick or magic? Didn't you already guess? So there really are mysterious magicians in this world? Draw your wand and point it at him. The corners of Fury's mouth trembled, and he honestly moved to the side, but the world tree wand in Anson's hand moved with it. Hey, what the hell are you trying to do? Anson, aren't you trying to verify the authenticity of magic? There was a light in his eyes, and seeing this Fury suddenly felt a bad thought. Without waiting to struggle, the small wooden bar in his eyes had already shone brightly, turning into sheep. Transfiguration. The theory of magic involved is very complex. In the wizarding system, transfiguration exists as a special case of magic, but it is undoubtedly very powerful. If you force it to explain it by existing science, this magic already involves structural changes at the atomic level of matter, and even recombination. Fury watched in horror as his hands turned into hooves, and his limbs jumped unbearably on their ground. Maybe it's not used to it, bleating constantly. Fear blooms in the eyes. Anson looked condescendingly. The world always thinks that they have everything in control, but everything is still mysterious. Snap. With a snap of his fingers, Fury returned to adulthood again. Gasping and sitting to the side. Just as Spencer brought out tea. Sir, please drink tea. Knock knock. Pick up a sip and drink it all. It seems that it is not too addictive, but I still want to eliminate the fear and shock in my heart in this way, and grab the teapot and pour a few large mouthfuls regardless of whether it is hot or not. In that one-eyed eye, there was no longer the calmness when he first came. What is it? Magic. We've never seen you guys, and this power is terrible. Anson shrugged. In fact, it is not terrible. The transfiguration will disappear due to the passage of time, and without my intervention, you will still become a human in a few days. Fury smiled wryly. What's the use of that? If it is turned into a sheep on the battlefield, it is basically equal to death. And yesterday Anson turned his pistol into a snake. If you speculate on this data, does it mean that he can turn any weapon into an animal? That's almost equal to the magician being immune to most of what he currently knows. But, Fury, I have a plan. The Avengers, you know? Ah, magic, that's amazing. Then, not interested. Sitting down with his own care, Hall appeared out of thin air with a pot of tea, poured it for him, and did not forget to throw out a piece of dragon meat to the squatting Yuan devouring beast. Fury's eyes narrowed, and yesterday he saw this creature appear and take Bendra away. Is it him? Is he? Hall, of course, sir. House elves are not human, but we are intelligent creatures. And wisdom? Can you talk? Well, damn magic again. Fury, I'm here to ask you for help. Looking for Stark? Yes, you see. What pay? What? Suddenly made Fury uncalm again. Spencer, sir, are you asking for help for free? What do you want? He knew that he would probably bleed a lot this time, but as long as he agreed, it would not only save Stark, but also get first-hand information about the magician. It's all worth it. I want you to help me find someone. Fury paused. Gone. Anson nodded. It's gone. Deal? Of course. Fury leaves, and Spencer says that the armed forces outside the estate have also withdrawn. Fury didn't come alone when he first appeared, and hell, this guy didn't realize that there were Hydra people in his people right now. Alas, the estate was abandoned, replaced place. Spencer was stunned. Young master, what's wrong? Among the people that guy brought were Hydra people. Spencer narrowed his eyes. Anson looked at him. Mr. Spencer, don't you want to tell me something? The matter between the Lord and the lady? Obviously. From Spencer's mouth, Anson's guess was confirmed one by one, and his cheap parents in this life really died under another branch of Hydra. A Hydra in Western Europe, to be exact. Spencer tracked it down, but only got one name, Strack. Anson raised his eyebrows when he heard the name. This guy seems to be the guy who transformed Wanda later, right? According to the timeline, he should still be hiding in S.H.I.E.L.D. Chapter 038. However, it is much easier to know who it is. I came to this world, inherited this identity, and naturally had to do something. To be honest, Anson thinks that he is not a good person. Maybe he will break up with the Avengers in the future, but there are things to do. Originally, if Stark knew about the House Elf Hall, he could have read Hall's name Hall directly. Although house elves don't mean that they can go wherever they want. They are Mondo's skills. There are several conditions required, and the house elf must remember someone's magic fluctuations or some kind of rule, analogous to smells and so on. Either they have been before, or the target calls their name. So it's unlikely that you want to find Stark through Hall at present. Hall, go to Avalon Castle and bring the owl. Yes, young master. A few minutes later, Hall appeared with a round-faced fat chicken in his hand, and this guy was still pecking Hall. Obviously the feeling of being carried through space is not very good. Take out a blank piece of paper and some food. To Stark. That's right, that's Anson's approach. The round-faced chubby owls of the wizarding world have a magical talent, and there is a power in the underworld, or their own talent that will guide them where they want to go. Find what you're looking for. Hall, you follow behind, and once the owl finds the vicinity of the target, come back and take me there. Yes. Hall and the owl disappeared. The next day, Hall appeared in the study, and Anson put down the magic book. Found it? Yes, young master. Right in a cave. Hall can faintly hear some sounds of iron strikes. Take me there. Whoosh! It disappeared, and by the time Anson saw the light again from a burst of vertigo, he was already in the desert, and a hot breath came to his face. Freezing fire curse. A breath flowed, the heat of the sky seemed to disappear, the wind blew, and the family raising elves was very comfortable. The freezing fire spell was originally used to isolate the damage that the flames inflicted on wizards, but now it is also suitable to isolate the desert and the heat of the sun. It's really exquisite magic, and a young master will definitely be even greater than Deng Bredo in the future. Hall duly praised. Anson, let's go. Illusion charm. Following Hall, he walked into the lair of the bandits who closed Stark, which was indeed very secretive. No wonder S.H.I.E.L.D. and the military have been looking for so long and can't find it. If you just use drones and satellites, I am afraid that you will not find that there are caves under this ravine, even if a helicopter flies overhead. Since people choose this place as a base camp, they naturally have to occupy the right time and place. Walking through the valley into the cave, the crowd walked as if they couldn't see them. At the end of an iron gate, Hall pointed inside. Whoosh! Walking through with Anson again. He opened his eyes, and Stark had something glowing blue on his chest, hammering with a hammer in his hand. The person who is helping on the side should be Anson. Glancing at the surveillance. This monitoring used by bandits to monitor Stark's iron is not very easy to handle, and there seems to be nothing in his own spell that can be concealed from physical monitoring. Never mind. Hey, Stinky Stark. Huh? Stark looked up, and there was no one around. Anson, did you hear anything just now? Anson shook his head. Are you too tired? Stark thought about it. It should be too. You can see it all at a glance in the cave. If there are other people who can't say that they can't see it. Click. In the next second, the two froze in unison. Anson stunned and pointed to one side of the two, that it was just now. The camera's flash? Yes. Stark picked up the hammer and threw it towards the place where the flash appeared just now. Buzz. The hammer floated in the air and paused for a moment before falling to the ground. Moreover, it was at their feet. Nay, Anson, it won't be. There is RPO. Ahem. Anson, how can you say that? So how did you explain it just now? I said you two are enough. It's me. Some childish voices came again, and Anson was already a little trembling, but Stark frowned. This voice seemed to have been heard somewhere. Little brat? Blurted out. It can't be. Big little brat? Is it really you? Anson, wait, Tony, who's the brat? Stark shrugged. A little bastard. It's a stinky fart. I'm here to save you. Well, it's out of now, Bye. Anson's voice was no longer heard in the air. Don't. I won't call you a little fart after the big deal. What kind of technology are you? Although optical invisibility is not difficult to deal with in theory, I don't seem to see any equipment. But just give me some time and I'll definitely figure it out. And who let you do it yourself? Anson's face was full of helplessness. How could this person not be liked? I suddenly don't want to save you. Goodbye. Anson, don't. Shout. Bang. The guards outside knocked on the iron door and looked in from the small window. Don't want to cause trouble. Strike the iron well. Inside. The two whispered. Anson nudged Stark. This may be our only chance to get out alive. No matter how he got in, there must be a way out. The implication is that Anson will move the rescuers. It's better than Stark trying to build an iron box. Stark was speechless. You don't believe me? It's not that I don't believe you. It's just that there is a better way. Stark shrugged his shoulders and hummed. Well, little fart, you win. Come out. Uncle Tony gave you a chance to save me, you know. I can go out on my own. Anson's eyes narrowed. Pit does not kill you. Hall, you go and cast a confusion spell on the person watching the surveillance. Yes, young master. Monitoring him can't be avoided, but that doesn't mean there's no other way. 3 seconds later, Anson directly lifted the phantom spell, raised his wand and hit Stark. Hairy curse, incisor, racing stick, tarantella dance. 3 curses in a row. Stark's body hair directly grew long in the incredible situation of Anson, like an orangutan. The 2 front teeth are even more prominent, more terrifying than the rabbit, even dancing in a burlesque. Fear visible to the naked eye. This power is beyond their perception, especially in Stark's eyes. Now Anson is still holding the camera. Hey, don't, cough, don't. However, his hands and feet did not listen to him at all, and the dance could not be stopped. Chapter 039. Rush. I finally stopped dancing, but in the face of the growing front teeth and hair, Stark was no different from an ugly beast. From this, you can also see the advantages of the magic on the wizard's side. Don't look at them as if they are not very powerful. But it doesn't matter who you are, even if Dumbledore is hit by their tarantella dance, you can't help but dance. As mentioned earlier, magic works by using the rules of the universe itself. It's that outrageous. Anson, you won. Quickly lift this kind of thing for me. Stark's face was full of helplessness. Anson, that's how you ask for people? Well, I beg you, put an end to this damn thing, God, my wise image, and delete the things from your camera. I don't. Direct rejection. Stark took a breath. Hall suddenly appeared. Young master. Phantom spell. 1 person and 1 elf disappeared again, and the next second, a group of people suddenly opened outside the door and walked in, each with a gun from different places. You can see the miscellaneous weapons. SHHHHLOH. Boom. Could it be that he has offended the gods? Go call the boss. For a long time, a bald head walked in, his eyebrows narrowed. Obviously, he also had difficulty understanding why Stark had changed the way he is now. Did he have some virus? Looked at Ethan, who was standing to the side. Ethan thought for a moment. It should. I give you 3 days to build what I want, or you know the cost. Ethan spread his hand. It seems that there is not much time left for us. Stark kept a calm face. They knew that these people would not let them leave alive. And naturally, they would not make the Jericho missiles that these people wanted. Instead, Stark was building his original aircraft. Being able to hand rub an arc reactor out under such humble conditions shows his talent. Now because of Anson's curse, Stark has such a weird performance, and people are naturally even more unwelcome. Little Anson, are you still there? Stark, what is your solution? Or is this the ability of the little stick in your hand? Little knowledge. I am Tony Stark, Great Tony Stark. Yes, that is locked up here to strike iron. Hell, you kid is so nasty. You too. Stark shrugged. Well, how are you going to get us out? At present, although part of the original aircraft has been built, because people have given 3 days, this is completely insufficient. If he can't build the first-generation machine in 3 days, I'm afraid that he looks like he has been infected with some virus now, and people won't give him another chance. As a last resort, compromise that thing on your chest. Give me one later. Brow furrowed. What are you doing with it? This is Stark's exclusive technology. Besides, can you afford it? You just say give it or not. Give to give. How do you want to take us out? Anson lifts the illusion charm and holds his wand. A bad smile looked at the two. How to get out? Ethan worried. I'm fine, but Tony still has injuries on his body. I'm afraid he won't be able to go far. Anson, it's not something I need to think about. Do you want to leave? Stark gritted his teeth. Go. Follow me, Hall, and you pay attention. Good young master. Hall will not let the young master get hurt. He did not doubt the loyalty of the house elves. Araho cave open. With a crunch, the iron door suddenly opened. The bandits guarding the door also fell, thinking that they were not locked up. Who expected that? A small child and a big-eared thing that he had not seen came out of it. To lift the 47 is to pull the trigger. Hall's fingers snapped, and the bandit seemed to be manipulated by a force to hit the side of their stone wall and fainted. At this moment, there was a burst of shouts outside the cave. Stark swallowed. Little Anson, Are you sure you can get it? Ethan had picked up the firearm on the side. Anson, mortals will never understand greater powers. The same goes for Hall. Along the way, all the bandits who were seen by Hall were all struck by unknown forces and fainted, and there was not even a trace of strength to resist. The two even saw the guns of those bandits turn into various animals after Anson's hands. Oh, God. It's not scientific at all, especially once Stark also grabbed the weapon that was turned into a pigeon to see. The touch, weight, and demeanor were all no different from pigeons. How did this work? Outside, a group of people with guns pointed at the entrance of the cave. Anson was surprised. What to do? Ethan felt a little bad as he carried the gun. Anson smiled, and the small wooden stick pointed at everyone. The bald head sank his face. You don't want to think about relying on this little log to solve all of us, do you? Arm up. The sound of pulling the bolt was heard one after another. Anson indifferently spat out a string of syllables, all petrified. A light curtain quickly spread out on the wand, and everyone in front of them seemed to feel a cold body, and found that they couldn't move. The grey-white light spread over everyone, like stone. Bang bang. Ethan knocked it with the butt of the gun, and his pupils shrank sharply. It is the feeling of percussion of stones. Let's go. Stark suddenly stopped. No, just go. I mean, there are so many weapons here. If they do something bad. Anson walked on his own. What does this have to do with me? You have such power. And have you ever thought that for you they are bandits, but for them you may be? After all, people didn't invite you to his house. Ethan, didn't you say? Stark was silent. And, what right do you have to kill them? You think you're on the moral and legal high ground? Ethan, he just wanted to make amends for his mistakes. I understand that the average incompetent person uses what they think is immoral embellished to whitewash their behavior. Stark shouted, I'm not, I don't. I just. Anson stopped and turned to look at him with a smile. Time will tell. Here, we have to talk about the performance of Stark and the American team in the Civil War in the future. If Stark advocated in the Civil War, then what was his behavior in killing the bandits here later? It can't be said that he has power. He is right. In this way, he really doesn't look better than the selfishness of the American team. At least High understands very well. I just want to help my friends. But while he holds high the banner of justice and norms, he still does what he says is dirty. Old Beauty carded. Chapter 040. But if you want, I can help, but all these killings are on your head. Stark thought of something, and just wanted to shout to stop. But Anson had already launched a spell. Raging fire. Yikes. The sky-piercing flames swept through the valley like dragons, burning the bandits' ammunition and causing them to explode again. During the explosion, there was silence in the valley. What does it feel like to be burned in a petrification? Anson doesn't know. It should be painful. The flame burns. Anson looked at Ethan. You think you can redeem him, but I make a bet with you. In the future, he will use what happened just now to blackmail me, and the excuse is to restrict the power I use. Ethan was dumbfounded. Stark wanted to say something but didn't say it. According to his nature, it was really possible. And he also thinks so. How destructive would it be if someone used such a force in a crowd? But he doesn't think about his own armor, and if Anson is a selfish person, then he is a person of extreme ego. Yes, B. He signed the so-called agreement later, but unlike other heroes, he has capital behind it. Who dares to demand him excessively? In the desert, the three people and one elf walked quietly until Stark gasped and said, Rest, I feel like we're safe, and with you here, I don't think anyone will want to come and get in trouble. Of course. A finger of the wand. The sand gathered together like a house to form a barrier against the sun, and Hall snapped his fingers. There's more food underneath, still bubbling with air conditioning. Stark was just about to step forward and pick it up. God. He was so thirsty. Anson, think about what to exchange it for. Stark paused. No, what else do you want me to exchange for this food? Everything is valuable, isn't it? Mr. Stark, like the cover girl won't let you sleep in vain. The corners of the mouth twitch. What do you want? A glass of cold water 10 million, a bottle of Coke 20 million, food for a total of 10 million. Oh yes, Ethan, you are free. No, why do you want to charge me? Don't you always advertise yourself as the richest person? Ethan deflated. He didn't know why this kid kept not dealing with himself, as if he had done something sorry for him. Hell. Didn't you just pay much attention to him when we met? His interest in children is really fatal. Ethan, this. Pendra. Mr. Pendra, how do you use it? Magic. Magic? Both were confused at the same time. They thought about what kind of superpowers or something. After all, the Hulk is not unusual for some people in the world now. But I never thought it was magic. Anson smiled. Don't believe it? No, it's not. It's just a little unbelievable. I always thought that these mysterious things were just legends, but I didn't expect them to really exist. I saw it with my own eyes. Stealth, fire, and the ability of the apparently non-human monster to appear out of thin air. Oh, and it's worth mentioning that Stark is still growing rabbit teeth and hair. Can you help me get rid of these things? 10 million. Stark shrugged and nodded helplessly. Stop the curse. Yikes. Rabbit teeth disappear and long hairs dissipate. Fantastic. It can only be said by magic. The growth and disappearance of rabbit teeth involves conservation of energy. and the same is true for long hair, and the growth and disappearance of hair should leave traces on the body surface. But now there is nothing in him. How did it do it? Again lament is unscientific. Hall, young master, it has been notified. The two didn't know why. Just now this little thing disappeared. Anson, just wait here, someone will come to pick you up. By the way, Mr. Stark, don't forget what you promised me. You won't want me to go to you. Holding Hall's hand disappeared. The shade that towers over the desert is also missing. Even the food that Anson took out. Ethan, what do you think? I don't know. I'm not interested anyway. All I want now is to get a good night's sleep after being rescued. Stark wasn't so easy. After going back, you must check the information about the surname Pendra. It is too weird. 2 hours later, the two looked up into the distance, and the sound of the clicking helicopter was clear. A man with a quiver on his back jumped out of a helicopter. Stark. Yes, it's me. You're not from the military? Of course, I'm from S.H.I.E.L.D. Let's go. A lot of people are waiting for you. Inside the estate, a guest came today. We still have financial ties with him? Was shocked. He really didn't know exactly how big the Pendra family's business was. Young master, although Mr. Fisk does not make a good living, he also has a lot of positive business. Not long after, Fisk was brought in. Long time no see, Mr. Spencer. Who is this? This is the heir of the Pendra family, Anson Pendra. Nice to meet you, Mr. Pendra. Mr. Fisk. Seated. Don't know, Spencer. We have a business that needs Mr. Fisk's help, and I don't know if Mr. Fisk is interested. It should be very interesting to be seen by the Pendra family. I am naturally interested, but I don't know what it is. Experimental material. Jinhee's eyes narrowed slightly. Experimental material? People? Of course, Mr. Fisk. If it were just an animal test subject, I wouldn't have bothered you to come over once. After all, this is your excellency's territory. Kim paused. Absolutely. Facilitating partners is one of the principles I've always upheld. What about quantity? He's not going to mess around, is he? Spencer shook his head. Young master, Wilson can gain a foothold and even expand in Hell's Kitchen. He is not a short-sighted person, and on the other hand, there is no conflict between us. This time it was just a convenient operation by borrowing his hand. Even if they do it themselves, there is no problem, but they don't want to get their hands dirty. By the way, Stark Industries shares will be thrown away when Stark returns. Don't you hold it? No need. That's a shame. Stark Industries is still quite profitable, Spencer said with some pity. Anson, we're not bad at money anyway. That night, Kim also asked people to send the experimental subjects that Anson wanted. There are not many of them, only 10 of them. The person leading the team has a sign on his eyebrows, which is a little strange, like a target, and the light behavior is obviously very confident. Sir, how to arrange? Hard work, just put it here. Thank Mr. Fisk for me. Bullseye nodded and left directly. Chapter 041. What intrigues Anson is that this time there is a hero among the people sent by Bullseye. Well, at least not a villain. Maybe it's an anti-hero. How could she be in there? Spencer shook his head. Isn't it appropriate? You go find information about Super Killer and Big Daddy. Spencer turned his head in confusion and walked out. 10 people in the basement were lying quietly in bed under anesthetic control, and this time, Anson wanted to study how to engrave the rules on people in other ways. The presence of huge scars is really not beautiful, and contrary to his habit of maintaining grace, inelegant, rude to death. Under the real eye, no trace of magic fluctuation can escape its perspective. Not long after, Spencer got information from Kim Hee, and he really had some fame and was super murderous. Young master, will this be troublesome? If they want to learn Batman, they naturally need to bear the pain of Batman, and as for trouble, Anson shook his head and didn't care. However, the super killer girl was caught in this place, and the Big Daddy should be able to find it. In the basement, there was a faint scream. There was a hint of light at the tip of the wand, but the people on the other side were struggling with twisted faces, but the ropes that bound them were specially made and could not even twist them. 10 minutes. The inscription is complete. Anson frowned. Still can't. Ordinary people can't communicate. Magic can't make the rules work. Stop. If this continues, I am afraid that the experiment will not be carried out to any extent. Huh? Are you awake? The remaining 9 had been awakened by the screams of the first person to conduct the experiment, watching a teenage child holding a glowing wooden stick. On the other side, who was obviously tied up like them, he kept screaming. How can it not be frightened? Only a little girl on the side was very calm, but curiously watched Anson's operation. She couldn't understand why a small stick could do all she saw. It's not scientific. The opera is still in a high-pitched order, and today I listened to the classic song Turandot, and Anson still liked it. Please wait a little for me, there are some problems that have been studied. Anson walked up to the second person and said to himself, the soul itself exists, of course, on the mystical side, for sure, but among the means at my disposal there is no means to observe the soul substantively. But, Whirlwind raised, coldly spit out a word, soul out of the body, he said. The second man arched his whole body, like a boiled prawn, his face instinctively struggling. and when a light softened, Anson was clearly able to perceive a strange feeling. It seems that he can manipulate this person, even control him to die. Magical. Extreme malice. From the perspective of the true eye, the spell of out of body is not controlled by the human body itself, but precisely by the soul. For example, at the moment, Anson could clearly see a grey human-like shadow coinciding with his body. Assuming this is the soul, and the soul is the only existence that ordinary humans can touch there, free magic of the universe, then what if the troll rules are inscribed on the soul? Anson was talking to himself. All those who were tied up hardly dared to speak. One is fear, and the other is being scared stupid. Anson, who is dressed well, and listening to classic operas, now looks a little slight. Sacred. It's like doing something terrible. And so it is. If this method can be successfully experimented with, it means that ordinary people may also be able to master the power of wizards. Since you can inscribe the rules of the troll, you must be able to inscribe other rules, such as releasing flames, lightning, and so on. It's worth looking forward to. As soon as the wand twisted, the man directly let out a scream and the whole person collapsed. Anson calmed his face and reached out to touch where there was any heartbeat. Is the magic output too large, causing problems with the soul? The soul is really weak in winning. Third, repeat the operation, but this time the mana output is much smaller, and the result is there. Same. The fourth is to be inscribed in part, but still dead. Anson guesses that the souls of these addicts cannot carry the troll rules, causing the souls to be inscribed by the inscribed troll rules to absorb the soul power in reverse and die. Fifth, Anson used his magic to maintain his soul, and the inscription was completed. But at the moment of completing the inscription, death. How does the soul need to connect to the magic that exists in the universe? In the eyes of wizards, magic is everywhere, even if they can't see it. But they can always feel it. Under the true eye, magic is like a spirit jumping in the air, extremely active. This is, the wizard's soul fluctuates with the magic that exists in the universe. Resonance? Anson looked at himself as if he understood something. Walk up to the sixth person and raise your hand to repeat. Outside. In the darkness, a man touched the manor, wearing a huge black cape behind him and a mask similar to Batman on his head. Seriously? He understood why Anson said Batman. Excuse me, is it Daddy? Sorry, that's a strange word. The big dad, who was hiding in the dark, came down and pointed two guns at Spencer, who was standing on one side. Who are you? Where is the superkiller? If you're looking for that little girl, please follow me. No words, take care of yourself and walk ahead. The eldest daddy was stunned. Who the hell is this? The manor was almost uninhabited before, and he even used some connections to find out who was behind it. However, listening to the accent, I can hear some of it, and the British accent is very heavy. Walk through the hall to the basement. The sound of opera that is just right enough to give the illusion of being heard, especially when there are still a few silent corpses here. Anson didn't even reply. Mr. Spencer, please bring some tea for our guests. Oh yes, and prepare some food. She may need to eat once the experiment is completed. Yes, young master. Spencer nodded to the big daddy with the weapon and walked out. The big daddy hummed. Who are you? What are you doing? Stop. Under his line of sight, the super killer's face was obviously wrong, as if she was suffering great pain. His face was distorted, and his muscles were bruised. Seeing that Anson was still operating with a wooden stick, the distorted face of the super killer girl became more and more hideous, and the big dad didn't think about pulling the trigger directly. Anson was a little surprised. Bang bang. 3 bullets obviously came down the skull and chest. Very professional. Also, superkillers and big dads are not heroes, they are more like anti-heroes. The bullet floated in the air, as if it had entered the sticky air, and stopped a meter in front of Anson, floating motionless. Nay. The father and daughter were stunned again. It's done. Let go of the world wand and casually wave the rope on the superkiller woman's body. Superkiller girl 1 jump in the air, spin 360 degrees to land, heroic squat, perfect. Click. The man froze and watched in disbelief as she stepped on the ground where the cracked crater was stepped on. What's wrong? Chapter 042. What's wrong? Bang twice. The scene just now frightened her, and she hurriedly took a few steps back, but she was still stepped on a pothole. The eldest daddy had extraordinary eyesight. Mindy, don't move, your strength has been strengthened. Incredible. Obviously, Mindy now has far more power than a normal human. At least he can't do it to this extent. Maybe with the help of some tools may be fine. Who are you and what the hell did you do to Mindy? Anson spread out his hand. Mr. McCready, it is clear that the burning stick in your hand will not do anything to me. In fact, I should be able to deal with you easily. What do you say about those who died for some necessary sacrifices? I think you should be understandable, even if they don't die under my experiments. Maybe tomorrow they will die in gang fights. Spencer happened to walk in with some tea. Something to drink? The big daddy shook his head, and the super killer girl was still motionless. Swallowed a mouthful of saliva. If I'm not mistaken, your daughter should be hungry by now. The big daddy looked over, and the super killer did nod. What I saw tonight was too scary, and things developed a little unexpectedly, and the super killer thought that she was taken away by Jin. But when he got here, He realized that things were not what he thought, but they were more dangerous. He couldn't see through the child in front of him. Spencer said gently, "Mr. Macready." "Madame, a dinner party has been prepared in the manor." "Mr. Spencer, this is where you are troubled." "Yes, young master." The father and daughter followed Anson out, and the super killer girl was eating a lot of meat on the dinner table, and there were a lot of bones on the table, and she still showed no sign of stopping. "What the hell did you do to her?" frowned the Big Daddy. "Anson, don't be nervous, she's fine. To be precise, from now on she should be able to be the same as you suspected." Team America, similar, but the difference is that Team America is achieved through technological means, while she is achieved by my means. "What's the difference?" Team America had side effects, she didn't. Anson inscribed the rules of the troll on the soul of the super killer woman, which is equivalent to saying that her soul is resonating with the magic in the universe all the time. This will cause her body to slowly strengthen to the level of a troll, without side effects. As for how strong it is, it will definitely exceed the human limit anyway. "Eat for half an hour." The super killer stopped in hesitation, her face ugly. "Good, it seems that you have adjusted. Your appetite will return to normal after today, but you need to stay here for a while and wait and see." The Big Daddy directly refused. "I don't agree. Anson, sir, I'm not asking you. Stand up. I'll be here when Mr. Spencer will come and arrange for you to stay. Please forgive me for needing to leave. Good night." The estate is huge. Father and daughter couldn't sleep tonight. The next day, a lot of testing instruments were purchased from the manor, such as measuring strength, speed and other instruments, and it turned out that it was even for one day. The physical fitness of superkiller women has also been compared to that of adults. And last night, she was only able to step on the ground, which was a magic riot formed after their first completion, and it was not caused by her power. It's just normal now. Over time, it will slowly grow to the limit of Anson's theory, trolls, or the limits of trolls. "Give." The super killer girl fell. "What do you mean?" Looking at Anson handed over a wooden branch, the pattern and structure on it obviously showed that this thing was not simple, and yesterday she even saw that Anson controlled those people with this thing, as well as transforming her. "Take it." Anson shook his head slightly. "There is no magic fluctuation." Some disappointment. It seems that even if it is transformed, the super killer girl cannot use magic. Also, if it can be used, it is really terrifying, and it can almost be fully deployed in the wizarding world, which means that everyone can use magic. Apparently God is fair. "Are you disappointed?" Anson shook his head, somewhat. "Okay, Mr. Macready, you've seen something happen to your daughter more than you can understand. Do you have any ideas to accept employment?" The eldest daddy frowned. "You want to ask us to do things?" "No, but you need to think about what happens once the change in your daughter is discovered. Capture, slice, research, this set of processes is not bad. Just think about the Hulk. In the future, after the stone that was cut off by Thanos, the end was also disassembled and studied, and the urine of people in Marvel was like this. What do we need to do?" Hearing this, Anson laughed. "Very good. The daily work is just to look at my industry. In fact, it is very relaxed, and their treatment is definitely better than you guys going to rob the gang." The Big Daddy nodded helplessly, as if they didn't have a choice. "Yes, but I also need this power," said the hand and pointed at the super killer woman. "Of course." "Okay." The corners of his mouth rise. "One more experimental subject. Anson's theory and operation will be more perfect." The super killer interjected, "Wait, can we still go out and fight the gangsters in the future?" "Feel free." Anson didn't care what they wanted to do, even if it's trouble to find Jine. Late, Hall brought back what Anson wanted. Part of the material of the compound decoction. It is not difficult to see in the inscription of the super murder woman that the stronger their physical fitness, the more able to carry it, and the stronger the person in the heart, the more able to bear the pain in the inscription. Don't underestimate the inscription. This is operated on the human soul. In fact, he was surprised that the super killer girl could survive. This pain is no less than someone pulling on your skin with a blade. It's still the kind all the time. So Big Daddy's transformation Anson wants to use compound decoction. The same is true in their last experiment. If Big Daddy drinks compound decoction to become Hagrid, there should be no problem with physical fitness. How could he have Hagrid hair? Merlin's chest hair. Hagrid is the only human with a troll bloodline that Anson can contact, and this cross-species biological genetic material is precious. But the brewing of the compound decoction takes nearly a month, so he can only take it slowly, and there are some materials that he does not have. "Why do you need these materials?" "It doesn't seem surprising," Wang muttered. Carmitage didn't. "Yes, Anson, very good. I'll send you some dragon meat later." Wang's eyes lit up and he rubbed his hands. "How embarrassing is that?" Chapter 043. Compound decoction in preparation. "What do you mean?" "That kid bought my stock and sold it." "Poo-poo, it's a little weird, but that's it." "But they've made close to 1 billion by repeating Stark Industries stock." The corners of Stark's mouth hurt a little. He is rich, but not a fool, and when the company's stock goes up and down, there will definitely be someone who loses money and someone makes money. Hell, How did that little pervert know that something was going to happen to him? Tony didn't think that it would be Anson who caused the possibility of his kidnapping, and he still had a force on how terrifying the little pervert was. There is no need to do this. As for the money, don't make trouble. Just now he can find out about the surname Pindra. The assets he holds exceed 100 billion. Or a beautiful knife. The devil knows if there is anything he hasn't been able to find. These industries are almost all over the world, involving a variety of industries, and at first glance, they are completely colossal. Without adequate networks and circles of interest, it is simply impossible to achieve this level. Where can he find out? Oh, there was a manna on the tablet. Well, no wonder he refused when he wanted to buy this manna. Feelings of this little pervert. However, Tony thought of something funny. What? Bought again, or short? What does he want to do? Tony listened to Pepper with a confused face, and Anson had bought Stark's shares again. Still not optimistic that they are buying and selling. Nasty brat. I thought to myself, how could he be sure of himself? Well, if you close yourself, which is their most profitable weapons department in Stark Industries, stocks do fall. Let him earn another fortune. Night. Everyone saw the news in the manor. Spencer, young master, another few $100 million to start. Obviously, this time the stock fell more than Stark's disappearance, and there was even speculation in the media whether Stark's brain was broken. A weapons company closed a weapons department that is not looking for death. What is? Although Stark Industries has other industries, it is clear that the weapons department is their basic plate for Stark to become a behemoth. For example, relations from the military. Big Daddy rolled his eyes. It's impossible to think about it. The Stark family is the same urine. What their own weapons are. Not evil. Of course you can say so after making money. Super killer. But it does take a lot of courage for him to close the weapons department. But, unfortunately, Stark's weapons are estimated to be out of print in the future. The father and daughter looked at each other and looked at Spencer. Spencer pursed his lips and smiled. If you want, of course, you can collect a part. Yay. The super killer girl Meng asked. Can I ask for one? No, 2 pistols. Big Daddy, I need a sniper rifle, maybe something else. Of course. Spencer is also from the army, and naturally has a special interest in good weapons, and he likes Stark's quote, a real weapon, you only need to fire once. In the industry, Stark's weapons have always been high quality, and there is no problem in getting them. It's just a matter of adding some weapons to the family's security forces. Anson didn't care about that. One night, a few people were in the manor barbecue. A piece of sparkling things hit the sky suddenly fell not far away, and the dust raised by the airwave was about to pollute the barbecue for a while. Anson frowned. Iron Man? With a click, the mask opened to reveal a face that he hated inside. Uncle Tony finally came and you looked at me like that? Anson, obviously, I didn't invite you, and besides, according to the castle law, I can kill you right now. Tony shrugged. Well, it looks like some people are angry. Hey, Mr. Spencer, super killer, are you stuck? It's obvious. Extremely smelly fart. Say, what are you here for? Oh, conveniently took out an arc reactor shining with a light blue light, very small, but possessed extremely powerful energy. What is the concept of 3 billion joules per second? It is equivalent to producing about 830 degrees of electricity per second, and every second, according to the rabbit's 1 degree electricity of 5 mho, he can earn more than 400 per second by relying on the arc reactor. Take the rounded 400 to calculate, 20,000 for a minute. This thing for modern industry is simply a money printing machine. This is why after Stark closed the weapons division, the company remained strong or even better than before. Of course, this is only a superficial calculation, but you can also see the superiority of this thing. My arc reactor? Tony narrowed. Uncle Stark never breaks his word. By the way, what do you want this thing for? Put the toilet in the lighting, then you can go. Stark exaggerated. No, it's all coming. How can I entertain it? The Pendra family has a long tradition, and I can't even entertain a barbecue. Spencer looked up. After thinking about it, he shook his head. With this person's intelligence and interest network, it is not difficult to find out the details of Pendra. Pendra? The superkiller father and daughter were curious. They knew Anson's last name, but they never thought much about it. Now it seems that there should be a big secret. I said you would leave if I didn't entertain you. Of course, it won't. He sat down to the side. Kang busy. Don't lose your face. How can I say that I am also a famous Stark, saying that this needs to be sprinkled with so many peppers? The superkiller laughed. Of course, Anson said that this is the soul. Try on the mask. It was difficult to operate a mouthful. Boom. Hiss. It's nice, but is the beer? Big Daddy handed over a cold beer. Gulp took a sip. Barbecue must be accompanied by this thing to be interesting. Energetic show? What weird word is that? Superkiller. I don't know, Anson said. So he hired you? He said, pointing at the father and daughter. Slightly embarrassed. Tony doesn't care about that. How about coming and working with me? The salary is absolutely top. So what are you capable of? Does it count as being able to fight, huh? A Lily who looked younger than Anson said that she could fight. How powerful is it? Compare with one? Tony exaggerated to the point of comparing a biceps pose. See what this is? No, this is an iron pimple. It's muscles. Iron pimple. Are you still comparable? Okay, the little one is just impatient, just like Anson. Anson looked up. Hey, I can hear it. Spread your hands. Guys, bet on you. Mindy. Okay, bet on it. Mindy and Super Iron Man wrestle. Wrists begin. Big Daddy specific beer bottle. I bet on Mindy a bottle of beer. Spencer. Mindy, 2 bottles. Anson grinned. Mindy, 3 bottles. Tony, are you serious? Yes. Chapter 044. Tony grabbed Mindy's tiny pocket hand. Big Daddy held up a beer bottle on the side. Ready? Mindy, shredded coconut. Tony, Kang busy. 3 2 1, begin. Crunch. Tony's face changed sharply and he shouted, stop, stop, stop. Oh, God. Quickly withdrawing his hand wrapped in the suit, the steel in the arm area has been slightly deformed, and it has been damaged by 2% in Jarvis's detection. This is just a power drive from Mindy. He suspected that if Mindy punched with all his might, he might damage his suit. Is this still human? You won't be an alien, will you? The power of your explosion just now is even more than a ton. Spencer smiled. Mr. Stark, it seems that you need to purchase some more alloys from the alloy company under the Pendra family industry. We have many excellent alloys, not only the one you use now. That company is yours too? Tony's face twitched. Damn it. That company has been a good partner since he became president of Stark Industries. Anson, so, don't say in front of me how rich you are, mocked. Since his return, he has carefully checked all the companies in the world, especially about Pendra. It turns out that it is clear that the object that can make him value Tony Stark will definitely not be simple. The data shows that the Pendra family has ties to royal families around the world. Even their industries exist on a global scale, and even most of them are core-sensitive industries, and they are basically difficult to find with countless gloves. Even weirder, the one-eyed dragon said there was a problem with the Pendra family. As for what the problem was, he didn't say, and Tony didn't want to know. The only thing that is certain is that the heir of this Pendra family is definitely not as simple as it seems. There should not be many people at this age who can easily kill so many bandits without changing their faces. Magical magic, eerie powers. Everything made him have to pay attention. Anson, talk about it. Tony took a sip of beer. Ethan is dead. Not strange. Tony looked up. Not strange? Of course. When you say that you are Iron Man, you who claim to represent justice and you who have superpowers attract the attention of good and bad people all the time. He wants to save your fragile soul with his own life, Mr. Stark. After a little thought, Anson said, if you read the novel, you will know that there is a thing called the protagonist. Movie protagonist? It's similar. It's not important. The important thing is that everyone who is around their protagonist basically encounters various disasters, and even most of them die. And this is just the experience of the protagonists, and in the end it is nothing more than one thing to determine. Mindy nibbled on the barbecue and muttered, what's going on? What a hero is the inevitable victory and righteousness, how justified his sacrifice is, and what the bad man is the inevitable defeat and darkness, and how unjustifiable his actions are. Big Daddy, brilliant. So? Said Tony spreading his hand. Spencer, Mr. Stark, the young master means to stay away from people like you. Not everyone has the power of you. Most people are actually very difficult to live. Not to mention protecting yourself under power and conflict. I don't want that. Anson, what you gain, you have to lose. The world is like this, Mr. Stark, you better prepare. Now, the implications. If he continues to be Iron Man, the above situation may happen to him. Moreover, it is inevitable that it will happen. Think of the Hulk is a very obvious example. I have become bigger, my girlfriend is gone. How can I fix it? What's the use of making this bigger? Meow. Goo jumped on Anson's knees and lay on his stomach. Tony hadn't recovered from what he had just said, but Jarvis' words had brought him back. Sir, there is a huge amount of energy in the meat you ate just now. What do you mean? There is energy in the meat that can repair and nourish the body, and after testing, it is found that it is not a known meat food. Looking at the skewers in your hand, Nana took a few bites and nibbled down, and his eyes were fixed on those that were still on their barbecue grill. Mindy immediately noticed that something was wrong. Hey, how did you rob me? Oh no, don't be so petty. Tomorrow Uncle Tony will bring you a gift. No way, this meat is only available to Anson. Don't try to lie to me. What kind of meat is this? Mindy held up his ribbed chest and said proudly, of course I know, this is a dragon. Forehead. Shouldn't I have said that? Reacted immediately, the little face pulls across. What is this called? Tony's weird maze. What if Anson doesn't eat dragon meat in the future? This is meat that improves and strengthens physical fitness. Or dragon meat. Tony the dragon glanced at it a few times, and it didn't seem much different from common meat. Is it the kind of dragon I know? Anson flicked it casually, and a huge dragon meat appeared on the chair on the side, and his eyes lit up and spit out dense tentacles in his mouth and rolled directly into it. Meow. Boom. Tony thought he must not have woken up yet. Yes, otherwise how could a cat have tentacles? It's okay, just say it, and I'll revise his memory later. With a click, Tony put on his mask. So what? Come back later. He ran away with a fire. Mindy pouted, just go and take a barbecue. It's really stingy. Ha ha ha. Lab at home. Jarvis, how's the test going? Sir, it's really not known meat. Maybe it's really a dragon. It contains a unique energy that repairs damage and strengthens the body without side effects. Can you calculate the state in which this thing is alive? There is a concept art. Put it out and take a look. Zig. The projection appeared, and at first Anson released a dragon meat and then calculated based on the meat retrieved, and an image similar to a western dragon appeared. The creature is expected to be nearly 10 meters long and weighs more than 3 tons, and it is estimated that it should have magical abilities, but the specifics are unknown and lack of data. Magic. Well, he hates magic. It's not scientific. Why is there no news of such a huge animal in the world? He is not sisterly. Imagine the legendary dragon, the kind of evil dragon imprinted in the Westerner's mind, the kind of existence that once it appears, it represents destruction. Why would it be Anson's ration? Moreover, from Anson's degree of treatment, the result can be fully derived. He has a large number of dragons in his hands. Nay. Chapter 045. Young Master, is there any use for us with this thing? Spencer looked at the arc reactor in Anson's hand. Well, it should not be rubbed by hand. It's the beauty of technology, like magic, and Stark is really talented in research. Is it excellent? Anson, Mr. Spencer, what if I say that this little thing can support the use of electricity in a city? Albeit shortly. Several people exclaimed. Only the silly Mindy was playing with the yuan-devouring beast, and she was not interested in any of this. Although this is only the first generation, the generation marked Tony has a warm heart is not much outrageous. Theoretically, the second generation setting is 1,000 times the energy output of the first generation. But no matter what generation it is a technological product that transcends the times. In the future, take it to Avalon Castle as a charging treasure. Spencer paused. Good operation. Mindy looked up. Anson, you still have a castle? Of course, you can also go over when the matter here is dealt with. It's beautiful. Don't worry, it's okay, it just hurts. Anson is fast. While Mindy was comforting the big daddy, Anson had a black face. This description, how did it feel so weird? Here, drink it. Compound decoction. A compound decoction containing Hagrid's hair. Tastes disgusting and unpleasantly unpleasant. Damon pinched his nose and poured it in. Ah, this smells really. In the next second, Damon's body began to change. His figure soared, his hair appeared, and his height suddenly jumped to nearly 3 meters. It's not surprising that there are slight changes, especially the appearance. It is exactly the same as Hagrid. It's amazing. Okay, lie down. Anson took out his wand and worked for half an hour before engraving the dragon rules on Damon's soul. From the perspective of the real eye, the dragon rules are induced by Anson's magic to resonate with the surrounding magic, and their rules are slowly turning like gears pushed by magic. Boom. Damon walked off the test bench and looked at his hands and feet in surprise. Power. Great power. Jump up and down slightly. Boom. Stepping directly into it to the extent of nearly 30 centimeters. Hiss. Gasping for air. This power is even more terrifying than Mindy showed at the beginning. This is the power of dragons. Think beautiful. You still need a long time of exercise and accumulation to be able to beautify the dragon, but it's not bad. The ultimate strength should be about 3 times the weight of the dragon, or even better. The dragon weighs 3 tons from the bottom. 3 times is 9 tons, and the American team can play for a day, which shows that Damon's growth should be very good in the future. Maybe Damon went up and the American team would be confused. The next step is to observe, record, and until there are no side effects, after which Anson will operate on himself. However, there can be no rush. He needs to determine the core point, whether this inscription method can be repeated. Inscription, and once repeated inscription, will there be conflict? He needs to study it slowly. Contact Kim again and send 10 gang members. The results are encouraging. All the subjects inscribed with the rules of dragons and trolls did not have any adverse reactions, but unfortunately, the rules of dragons represented greater reinforcement than the rules of trolls. It seems that only the stronger rules of the same kind are working. However, as long as multiple rules do not have a bad effect. During this period, he returned to Avalon Castle, and the wizards he brought with him were still transforming the castle, not much faster, and the magical beasts that brought back Marvel were also slaughtered by Anson. Yes, nature is the magic rule that may appear after the death of fantastic beasts. Got quite a bit more. Overall, it is certain that killing fantastic beasts will drop magic rules in 3 directions. 1 is a reinforcement system, such as the rules for trolls and dragons to strengthen the body. 2 is the ability system, such as skills. Anson killed a lot of owls and got a sense of direction skills. After being engraved on the subjects, there seemed to be a kind of underworld guidance to let them go where they wanted to go, which was magical. 3 is deformation. For example, The rules that appear after the death of birds and snakes can make people bigger and smaller, and the rules that appear after the death of Madago cats are doppelgangers. The third rule is the skill that works on the wizard to change the body. Each has its own benefits. At this point, Anson wants to die a phoenix even more, but it is likely that it will take many times to die before dropping the rule of immortality. Of course, the biggest possibility is that he was first killed by Dumbledore's avowed annoying big melon. Don't think about it. Record. After taking the compound decoction, I can perfectly withstand the pain of inscribed rules. The shorthand quill next to Anson wrote automatically. The 3 rules can be inscribed in multiple ways. Do not cause abnormalities to the soul, and after the inscription will become the inscribed talent enhancement (TBT). A week later, Spencer took the Hall Elves to guard the Chamber of Secrets. Anson began to operate on himself, taking a sip of the compound decoction and frowning. It's really hard to drink. The same smell as the sewers. Fishy. Raise your wand and inscribe the rules of the dragon on your soul little by little. Huh? When it was just finished, the whole secret room seemed to be blowing a huge wind. Hall opened his mouth and was surprised. What a powerful magic fluctuation. What do you mean? Spencer was a little anxious. The young master will be fine, right? Of course. Don't worry about Mr. Spencer, young master. This is a good thing. His body is fully capable of carrying more magic. Merlin's booges. This total amount of mana is more than a little stronger than most elite wizards. He was sure that the young master would definitely be even better than Dengbally in the future. Even greater. Anson closed his eyes to feel the changes in his body. It seems that the effect of inscription on wizards is much better than that of ordinary people. Is it a relationship of magic? Next, it is to constantly temper your body. Only a better body can contain more magic power, and can also interact with the magic and rules that exist in nature in the universe, thereby increasing your magical power. Young master, people from S.H.I.E.L.D. are here. Bring in. The person who came was Coulson, who had a more pronounced hairline. Mr. Pendra, this is what you want. A document. Help them find the deal Stark promised. Open the file and see. Wonder. Living in Sokovia, the detailed address and information are on top. Yes. The deal between us is done. Coulson paused and asked, is there something wrong with her? You must have checked. She is just an ordinary person. Coulson and Fury don't think so. There must be something they don't know, but they can't find out. Chapter 046. Wonder. No matter which universe the Scarlet Witch is, she is a potential chaos magic owner, but different universes have different origins. But chaos magic will always be her main power. After Anson determined that this was a movie universe, he was relieved and fell in love with Wonder, who had great potential. A halfway monk, relying on instinct to explore the ability to use magic, can fight Thanos' Fang. What if she gets a systematic teaching? Perhaps for other magical systems, the wizard's system may not seem powerful at present, but for Wanda, the wizard's system is subversive enough for her. What is faith and heart deciding everything? This happens to be a perfect fit for chaos magic. Of course, if Wanda couldn't use it for him, then Anson would be more willing to die her than for anything else. Chaos magic was too weird. When you think the world changes, you also don't want to be yourself, because someone else might say something casually. You shouldn't exist and disappear, right? Chaos magic is more like the ability of the mysterious side than the secret mage of Carmitage and the spell of the wizard. Already, words, out, law, and whatever. Sokovia. Taking the special plane to this side, Coulson licked his face and followed to act as a guide, but he could indeed avoid many things. Of course, it may also attract the attention of Hydra. That's it. In a dilapidated town, Sokovia never seemed to emerge from the flames of war, littered with ruins and black smoke filling the town. This is just the tip of Sokovia. Inside a house, the two little guys were hiding above and watching the people who appeared below, obviously not belonging to the people dressed here. A well-tailored suit, a meticulous hairstyle, a person without any trace of dirt on his face. Who are they? The little girl with dark red hair shook her head, but she knew that it was certainly not something they could afford to mess with. At this moment, Anson raised his gaze, and the two looked at each other. Quicksilver quickly retracted his head. Hell, how did he see us? Wanda was silent and left quickly after Pietro. The food for today had not yet been found. Coulson shrugged. It seems that people don't want to see us. Let's go. At the other end, the siblings had just gone downstairs from one side to continue looking for food, who expected to see the three people again at the foot of the building. One pulled Pietro behind him, his eyes full of guard. Wanda, Maximoff? Who are you? Anson held up his hand and signaled that he would not hurt them. Anyone who lives and grows up in such an environment suddenly sees a few people who are obviously not here and knows their names, and it is not right to look at it. What do you want to do? Seeing the guy about his age walking over, Wanda, who wanted to leave, suddenly stopped moving, and his eyes were slightly evasive. It was as if there was a magic in this person that was attracting her. I don't know why she felt this way. She seemed to feel that this person would not hurt herself. And, look, I didn't hurt you. Can we talk? Said Anson sincerely. What do you want to get? said Pietro. Anson smiled. You guys. What do you mean? I give you everything you want. You do things for me. How? Wanda frowned. We don't know anything. And besides, what do you mean you want us? Literally, you are far more powerful and potential than you think. And of course, you can think of this as a deal. Oh, I forgot to introduce you. This is Mr. Spencer, the butler of the Pendra family, my most important person, and the one next to me is not important. Coulson, I thank you. Wanda paused. The Pendra family? I don't know. Shrug. Well, even Tony, Stark, etc. need to be looked up to find out some of the Pendra industry. Not to mention Wanda, who grew up in the fires of war. He said solemnly, I offer you the opportunity to avenge Stark. In exchange, how about you do things for me? Is there a salary, or food? Pietro's eyes lit up. Wanda glared at him and shrunk back. Wanda, are you sure you can get us to take revenge on Stark? Of course, you can go with me to find out my strength before making a decision. Even if you don't want to, you can go to live somewhere else. It's better than here. I promised. Anson froze. Decided so quickly? As long as we can take revenge on Stark, I promise you. The firmness of the eyes, Anson had never seen such a look, perhaps allowing the two siblings to persevere in the war until now. In addition to helping each other and warmth, it is hatred. However, the truth is not necessarily as they expected. Nice to meet you, Miss and Sir Maximov. I'm Spencer. Please tell me if you need anything, Spencer said gently. This is the first time that Anson has asked for someone so solemnly. Although he didn't know what special abilities the two teenagers in front of him had, he was different from Coulson. He was also the housekeeper of the Pendra family. The Spencer family is also the hereditary butler of the Pendra family, so naturally they have to think about Anson. Hello, Mr. Spencer. The two were a little scared. His eyes looked at everything on the private jet, as if he didn't dare to touch it and wanted to try it. Anson, just feel free. You can understand that I have a lot of such things, so many that I can't imagine it. Pietro, can I look around? Anson smiled and nodded. Wanda, Pietro, don't mess around. It's okay. Looking at Wanda seriously, according to the agreement, I will give you the opportunity to take revenge on Stark, and even help you become strong. You don't have to worry about the forces behind him. What do I have to give? Wanda took a deep breath. Anson said meaningfully, follow me to learn magic. Learn magic? Coulson put his ears up for a long time, and finally came to a little energetic of the show too. That's right, studying magic. I think you should be able to feel that you and Pietro are a little different, although you hide it well. Wanda nodded. Coulson was confused, and when they found out about Wanda, they even knew exactly how much they ate and pulled every day, let alone the past. How come? What else is different from ordinary people? Do not know. Magic, nasty magic. Chapter 047. So, magic really exists? Wanda whispered. Anson raised his world wand. This is the wand, a spell-casting aid under the system I learned. This one is made from the branches of the world tree and the hair of the Meta-Eater, which is very powerful. Through it, wizards can do a lot of bizarre things, such as levitation charms. Coulson twisted and was lifted inside the plane by a force. Letting him move is like being detached from gravity. For example, Villavito. Deformation. Wanda's eyes narrowed instantly. It's so beautiful. A water cup on the table turned into a cat moving, alive, and she could even feel the temperature when her hand touched it. Magical. Coulson. Anson, have you forgotten something? Snap. With a snap of his fingers, Coulson slammed into the plane. Anson looked at Wanda leisurely. If you want, you can learn all this in the future, even better than me. I do. Good. Not much happened along the way, and it was naturally good that Wanda was able to get into his hands, a possessor of chaos magic with unlimited potential and power. It's also important for Anson. If he can't control it, he can completely throw Wanda into the wizarding universe and trap her. As for Coulson, perhaps the biggest gain this time was knowing that the man recruited by Anson had a feud with Stark. He could vaguely guess a little, such as the story of Wanda and the two orphans. How Sokovia's weapons came about, shield, is clear. The second, which should be what Anson said, the so-called wizards need to use small wooden bars to cast magic. Well as the composition of the wand of the world. They didn't know what the world tree was, but he and Fury knew very well. Unfortunately, the Yuan-Eater beast is in Anson's hands. He thought he had discovered Anson's weakness, got off the plane and left quickly. He's not coming with us? Of course not. In fact, we are not on the same path as him. The siblings seem to understand whether to be in a good position, and when they arrive at the manor, they are once again shocked by Anson's wealth and believe that he can let the sisters complete their revenge. That night, a document was placed in front of the two. I can actually go directly to Stark for revenge, but I think you still need to know this information. Wanda looked over. Because of the relationship to take revenge on Stark, they were no strangers to English. However, looking at the records above had the feeling that they were crushed. Looking up at Anson in disbelief. So, it has nothing to do with Stark? Is the weapon sold by this man named Stan and Obadiah? No way. Pietro refused to believe. I clearly saw that the missile that fell into my kitchen had the word Stark printed on it. It can't be. He must be responsible in it, right? Spencer sighed. Anson nodded. Of course, he is responsible, but the weapon is indeed sold by Obadiah. From another point of view, Stark has enjoyed the benefits of arms trafficking, and naturally needs to bear the responsibility for it. Poor supervision is on his head. Moreover, this is almost his own inability to control Stark Industries. But this thing is up to the benevolent. Stark is also very innocent. His godfather not only kidnapped him, but also became an arms dealer with 2 heads of trafficking without his consent. In the end, most blackpots need him to carry them, and they are not wronged. Maybe he can't fully control Stark Industries, but he's a benefit holder. It's that simple. For example, the Pendra family industry also controls many companies, and if someone messes around, the hurt person pushes the black pot on Anson's head. Anson is probably wronged too. Yes, the East pays attention to wrongful debts and masters, and those who hurt the Wonder family and caused them to become war orphans may have died long ago. Maybe it's all turned to ashes. The Wonder duo said that they wanted revenge, rather than to find a reason to keep them alive. Anson continued, if you want to take revenge on Obadiah, there is a chance recently, and he and Stark will definitely only survive. The implication is that if you insist on taking revenge on Stark, there will be time later. None of them can run away. Pietro insisted. Wanda sighed and did not speak. Spencer nodded. According to the information we have so far, if Obadiah wants to plot Stark's newly researched arc reactor and suit, there will inevitably be a big war. What are we going to do? How about making up for the last shot? Came Anson's indifferent voice. Wanda frowned. There is no other way. I thought you would like the blade enemy. Pietro, I'll come. Very well. Anson smiled. Wanda seems stubborn but more pure, while Pietro seems simple, but more persistent. Pietro is Wanda's weak point. He likes people who have weaknesses and are still very strong. Squint, thinking about the changes of the two in the future. Wanda, naturally needless to say, can put the right person with Thanos. Quicksilver. Pietro is weirder. People who see it at speed will die at gunpoint, and they are considered plot killings, perhaps. But now that they are living in the real universe, Pietro will definitely not be too weak in their future. Then again, the two were affected by the minor gem to completely awaken their abilities under the test of Hydra. In fact, this is really the case. Not necessarily, at least not in Anson's view. Ability is innate. Moreover, a person who has been genetically modified by supreme evolution, new setting. Wanda's chaos magic is inherited from the ability in the bloodline, and it stands to reason that Pietro should also have such an ability, but what he has now is extremely fast. Mind gems merely strengthen their ability to awaken, not confer. However, it is also because of the appearance of the mind gem that Wanda has some relationship with the rough stone. Excluding these, Wanda's growth is still extremely superior. Pietro, even if it's a giveaway. Chapter 048. Thanks for the support. How are we going to learn magic? The next day, Pietro and Wanda got up early to stay next to Anson, and they were not only yearning for magic but also curious about magic. What Anson could manipulate at hand seemed to them to be nothing short of miraculous. Learn magic? Ha ha ha, Anson laughed. Wanda wrinkled the tip of her nose. What's wrong? It's that funny? Of course not. In fact, I haven't thought about how you learn magic. You're special, Wanda, though. Go. Leaving with the two, after talking to Spencer, he took the manor's car to 117 New Brick Street, one of the secret mage's sanctuaries. It was Mage Daniel who opened the door. Ah, nice to see you, Anson. Mage, the Supreme Mage is already waiting. Please, Daniel made an inviting gesture. The two siblings followed. The things in the building are completely different from the outside, with a weird retro and a lot of things that are deliberately placed here. Daniel, this is part of the Carmitage collection of magical items. It's magical, but most of them are dangerous. Are these all? Of course. Pass through any fixed door and reappear at Carmitage. Master Wang is waiting here. Anson, King, introduce. This is Wanda, the successor of Chaos Magic. This is Pietro, Wanda's younger brother. No, I'm an older brother. Wanda hammered him. I'm my sister. Wang shrugged. It seems that it is very complicated here, but you will have time to tell in their future. Please. When did the Supreme Mage return? After you left last time. That was really not a coincidence. The last time he came to find Wang to get the branch of the World Tree, he did not meet the Supreme Mage, and there were originally some questions to ask. If he had any questions on Earth, there was no doubt that the Supreme Mage was suitable. This is a wise man. Anson did not wear wizarding robes, but still did a wizard's etiquette. Nice to meet you, Supreme Mage. Here you are, Wanda and Pietro. There is a meaning hidden under Anson's smile. This big guy really knows Wanda's existence, and it seems that he has not used the time gem to peek into other people's privacy. Master Anson, this time? Supreme Mage, you know, the magic system I learned is not the same as the secret mage, but Wanda is very suitable for the magic system I learned, so you're not sure if Wanda will be able to master her abilities? The Supreme Mage added honey-filled tea to the three. Boyo smiled. Very kind. Anson nodded. Koichi, don't care about Master Anson, you know that magic is always magical. It will give everything we want. Understand the vastness of the universe. Understand the greatness of life. Moreover, it is never the ability that is strong but the heart of the user, isn't it? I think Master Anson should be able to understand this sentence easily. Indeed, Yu Yi's words, just like Spider-Man's Uncle Ben said, are not what we want to do and what we can do, but who we want to be. But how is it the same as not saying? Anson, is the Supreme Mage going to take her? When Wanda heard this, she was anxious, and said yes, you gave me the opportunity to take revenge on Stark. Don't worry, Wanda, this is the Supreme Mage of Carmitage. She is a rare, strong and wise person in the entire universe. Praise for Mage Anson, but you can also call me Ancient Mage, but I have no fate with Wanda. You still talk about fate? Was Anson surprised? Yu Yi blinked. Naughty said, I still know Eastern culture very well, please. The tea should be cold. After taking a sip, the sweetness was not difficult to drink, but there was not much tea taste. A few minutes later, Anson left with the two men. Pietro, I think that tea is still relatively delicious. Why don't we sit down more? The tea was cold. The two looked at each other, not knowing why. Daniel, Supreme Mage, after all, the owner of Chaos Magic, let's. Mage Daniel, Chaos Magic is powerful, and can do all kinds of things that even seem extremely magical to us. But we can do it too. Lifting the tea. Besides, I believe those children. Daniel smiled and stopped talking. He was just afraid that Wanda would mess around in the future, and if Wanda grew to a certain extent, I was afraid that there would not be many people in Carmitage who were her opponents. It's that scary. Even at Wanda's peak, they could even deny their existence with a single sentence. Erase traces of their existence from time, space, and all levels. So he understood why Anson brought Wanda to meet the Supreme Mage, who is not afraid. Neither of the two sides mentioned learning each other's magic, which was very interesting, and Anson estimated that he could not learn it, and he mainly did not want to use the power of their dimensional demon god. The power of these guys is not so easy to borrow. People Yu Yi borrowed it based on his ability and could not return it, and if Anson borrowed it, he would have to have more troubles. Pay for one's whistle. A few days later, after a charity gala, it looks like they broke up. Obviously, young master. Do you want to prepare something? Asked Spencer. Obadiah knew that Stark had discovered that he had sold weapons to bandits, and even that Pabo had evidence of kidnapping Stark on his computer. He had to give it a go. Tonight will definitely be the time to decide which of the two will survive. No, we'll just wait. An hour later, Obadiah hurried back to Stark Industries. Stark is finished. Not necessarily. 10 minutes later, Pabo led a group of men in suits to rush over, holding weapons and obviously not getting along well. The thing worth saying here is that S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't have enforcement powers in Mika, so most of the time they do things as Fobble. Of course, if you see them doing it themselves, it means that they are messing around. Very beautiful card act. Like now. They're going to catch Obadiah? Asked Pietro. Spencer shook his head directly. In the information we got, Obadiah has introduced a lot of technology from the original machine built by Stark, and now he has obtained energy from Stark. He should have a similar suit in his hand. Sure enough, it didn't take long for a group of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents to run out with Popo, and it was estimated that they were hanging. Just as he was about to pinch Popo to death, a point of light suddenly appeared in the sky. The voice came out, Obadiah, want, tender, wash, you, sister Bo, curtain. Chapter 049. The super fast speed directly knocked Obadiah to the side. Two suits, one large and one small, wrestled in the driveway, and even some vehicles were involved in car accidents because of them. As the saying goes, superheroes are fighting, and mortals are suffering. Spencer, sir. The super killer and the big daddy are here. Mindy? Wanda naturally knew Mindy in the manor, but why did she come? Well, let them come. The group was like a melon-eating mass, and Anson cast a phantom spell to stand aside, and Mindy held a potato chip and clicked and nibbled, dressed in purple and a cape. He is very handsome. As for the big daddy, well, the imitation of Batman, he is a brain-dead fan of Batman. In other words, the Marvel world has, Dixie, Comics, and even Superman comics seem to be selling well here. Bang! Stark's golden red armor was grabbed by the Iron Overlord worn by Obadiah and smashed to the ground a few times before throwing it out. Oh! Mindy complained as if he had eaten something sour. He should be in pain. Pietro, deserve it. Spencer, young master, if they continue to fight, I am afraid that more people will be injured. I'll deal with it. Pick up the world wand and raise it to the sky. Mole retreat. Mole retreat. A point of light quickly flew above the battle between the two and spread out like a barrier, enveloping the field where the two fought below. And in Wanda's perspective, she could always see the light curtain that this point of light had become. In the distance, someone walked over, just touched the light curtain, seemed to remember something urgent, and left in a hurry. This is The mole shielding charm can make all ordinary people who do not possess magic subconsciously leave the area, and he can't help it when he is wrapped inside. If you want to live, you can leave. If you don't want to live, you can stay if you want to see the excitement. The missiles are moving. It's really exciting. If his kind of suit is mass-produced, I'm afraid it will be amazing, commented the Big Dad. Spencer nodded in approval. It's really amazing. Ordinary missiles and small-caliber bullets should not wear combat suits, and there are excellent suspension settings. The Iron Overlord and Mark armor have been smashed I don't know how many times, and they are obviously still alive. However, after the two flew into the sky one after another, Anson knew that the matter was coming to an end. Wanda's two siblings have a heavy face. If Stark is so powerful, will they have a chance to take revenge in the future? This time it was Anson who helped them take revenge, and at the cost of it, they needed to work for Anson for 30 years. What about the next time they come on their own? Stark's suit not only can fly, but also has powerful offensive capabilities, which is simply a product of subversive technology. Mindy exclaimed. Look, something has fallen. The Iron Overlord and Mark armor fell one after the other. Obviously, the Mark armor still has some energy, and the Iron Overlord can't do it. It seems that, because of the high-altitude ice, he directly plunged into the ground to make a hole. Stark lifted his mask and looked at the pothole with palpitations. This height falls, Obadiah should already be dead. But he underestimated Obadiah, or the researchers of Stark Industries, and the Iron Overlord was also excellent under their transformation. Stark, who had just walked over to check, was directly grabbed by the Iron Overlord in the pit. And after pulling it over, it became the result of a head under and the foot on the top. Obadiah disarmed, revealing him inside. With a smug smile on his face. Tony, I said, you will never be able to fight me. In fact, I don't want to kill you. You're a chicken that lays golden eggs, but you have left me a huge treasure. Point to the arc reactor on your chest. Do you have anything else to say? Stark was silent. His arc reactor didn't have much energy anymore. At least now he couldn't drive. Mark armor. Is that the end of it? Obadiah sneered and raised his armored arm to smash Stark. Hello, can you sign my name? Obadiah was stunned and looked down at the little girl standing under the Iron Overlord. Wanda looked left and right, did not find anyone. When did Mindy pass? Can't you sign me, Obadiah? Do you not know what the situation is now, or do you want to die? Mindy raised his little head and smiled. No, I'm an anti-hero. Yikes. A hand that grabbed Stark violently exerted force, and Stark was pulled into his hand with Mark armor and thrown aside. Loudly said, Big Daddy, it's up to you. AI, Kang, busy, yin, boom. Damon fell from the air dressed as Batman. Tell me, will you bleed? Obadiah. What the hell is the classic scene quoted this time? Both, give, me, go, die. Yes. The armor closed, and the iron fist was raised and punched straight at Damon. He had even imagined the image of this strangely dressed man dressed as Batman having his head shattered by him. Boom. The iron fist was resisted. Damon's hand was on the opposite side, and the ground cracked with a click. Sideways head out. Tell me, will you bleed? You, what a monster. Zig. A missile rises on his shoulder, and although small, Damon will not underestimate the weapon that Stark Industries has come up with. Ignition. Launch. Under the tail flame, a flash of fire quickly flew towards Damon. Damon reached out and grabbed it, couldn't help but take a step back, flicked his hand and threw the small missile out again. Boom. God. On the other side, Coulson and Popo's group were already dumbfounded. Is this still a power that people can master? They don't have specific data on how good the Iron Overlord and Mark armor are, but this is mechanical, and it is definitely many times higher than human strength. But now this person is actually able to fight with the Iron Overlord. The Iron Overlord hit him as if it was fine. Popo, Mr. Coulson, is this one of your people too? No, of course not, he is. Anson appeared with Spencer and the Wanda siblings, and Popo reacted naturally. Popo, Anson, Stark, Anson, Damon, that's it. Taking advantage of the gap, he kicked the Iron Overlord into the air. The wand pointed forward. The Iron Overlord seemed to be under control, as Anson spit out the word all petrified. The armor has completely immobile. A suit that no one controls is no different from scrap iron. Open his iron box. Damon grabbed the piece of iron exposed on the edge of the Iron Overlord, crunched, and directly pulled away from Obadiah who was exposed inside. Handing Pietro a pistol. Wanda slowly shook her head. Don't, Pietro, Pietro pointed his gun at Obadiah. Time seems to have stood still. Sir, you can't do this. The one-eyed dragon came out behind him, followed by a puff of smoke. Shield. Agents. Chapter 050. Sir, you can't do that. Fury came out and brought a large number of agents, one by one, holding guns and pointing them at Anson and his group. Anson turned his head. You know you can't get what you want from Stark, so you want to get it from Obadiah? Referring to armor, Fury didn't answer. The one-eyed one had only deep jealousy. Anson said to himself, I have a question. Why do you think you are in control of the situation? Fury frowned. Pietro, Wanda, the opportunity is for you. I did what I promised you. Of course, if you want to kill Stark now, I have no problem. Stark, who had just been pulled up by Popo, was stunned. What is this called? Hey, Anson, wait, what's killing me? Wanda said indignantly. I will never forget what you did to us. You deserved it. Coulson explained in a low voice. Stark's face changed and he sighed. Actually, well, I admit that there is some responsibility in this matter. I will not refute it, but you also know that this is not my intention. If you can, please give me a chance to make amends. Very sincere. He was a playboy, a proud man, and it was at least inconceivable that Coulson could say such a thing. He was not less intimidated by Stark. Wanda glared and turned to look at her brother Pietro. Pietro's eyes were red, his hand holding the gun was shaking, and Spencer was carrying a black umbrella pestle on the ground as a crutch. As a traditional British, carrying an umbrella is standard, not because of the weather. Mr. Pietro, please do what you want, don't worry about anything. Anson watched the same. Mindy snorted. Do you want me to help you? Damon pulled Mindy back to his side, and he could understand Pietro's actions. Was it necessary to be so entangled? Finally, he withdrew his hand. Wanda laughed. Bang! Suddenly, a blood flower spread out on Obadiah's body. Pietro raised his pistol again, this time with an extremely determined look in his eyes, heading towards him. No one should be held accountable for their actions. Anson smiled. The same goes for Spencer. This weakness of Wanda is magnified, and it's good. Click. The agents behind Fury were all loaded with their guns raised, and they were able to appear here, and Anson felt that these were the only people waiting here. Otherwise, his own Mull expulsion charm shouldn't be invalid. It is equivalent to saying that Fury watched Stark fight against the Iron Overlord throughout the whole process. Anson, now that you are involved in murder, don't act rashly, otherwise, the end is not what you want to see. And that Mr. Pietro over there, you're involved in illegal entry and murder, put down your gun. Cold tone. Anson turned to look at Damon. Big Daddy, found the Joker, where is Batman? Will he bleed, young master? Ha ha ha. Mindy laughed. She didn't care who was on the other side. Moreover, these people will definitely not catch them. Anson mused. Yes, Damon, then I don't know where he got the courage. Maybe they don't pick cotton anymore and feel like they're up, or maybe they feel weak and can demand everything. Enough, stop your ridiculous and shameful racism, now you're arrested. Anson stepped forward, and everyone else did the same. Then you come up. The condescending tone, the nonchalant face, and the raised world wand. Coulson, you go arrest them. Coulson, chief, or, what, Mr. Anson, this is standard procedure, please come back with us. Anson quickly pronounced a few words, armor talisman. Bang bang, a violent gunshot sounded, and the clanging blow was in front of everyone, but it was blocked by a layer of white light that could be faintly seen after a bullet hit it. What the hell? Fuck, this is not a person. Keep shooting. Anson raised his wand again, and Coulson and Fury were already hiding. Forget everything. Yikes. 1 PC. 3, 5, 10 pieces. All. Next second, the agent approached Fury. Chief, are we here for any mission? What? Open your mouth wide. They, controlled? Turn your head again. Where is Anson's shadow? The Iron Overlord had a blood hole above his head. Stark stood silently to the side, and Coulson frowned as well. Difficult. Go back. The subordinates are still wondering why they are here. In the manor. How does revenge taste? Pietro was silent and silent. Wanda was by his side. Mindy was still petting the cat. Damon was drinking, but his eyes were deeper. Wanda, am I doing something wrong? Pietro's eyes dodged slightly, not daring to look into his sister's eyes. Wanda hugged him. It's okay, with me, I won't let anyone bully us. Before everyone could rest for a while, Fury and Stark came. He already knew from Coulson that all the agents who brought past had a gap in memory, and this ability was simply terrifying. Could he then guess that Anson was able to completely modify a person's memory? It's entirely possible. Now it's just to modify the memory of the agent. What if he goes to modify the memory of their beautiful card read? As soon as Stark arrived, his eyes looked at Wanda. I already know what happened, and I asked your brothers and sisters to give me a chance to make amends. What do you use to make up for it? Said Pietro coldly. Do you know how long you didn't dare to move when the missile you made hit the floor of my house? We were afraid that any movement would make the missile explode, and thankfully, we survived. Papa grabbed Stark's hand. Stark, I can't change what has happened. You don't have to worry about illegal entry and murder. Stark Industries' team of lawyers will testify to you. Fury turned his head with a question mark on his face. Mr. Anson, can we talk now? Talk about what? About your abilities, about what you do. I don't want to talk about it. Spencer stood aside. Mr. Fury, there are still many counselors in Mika who are funded by their Pendra family, and even you will that need to buy our products. Are you threatening me? Mr. Spencer, of course not, Mr. Fury. I'm just telling you some facts, and of course, you can call it reality. The gentleman's soothing voice, but powerful. Only the more he understands the Pendra family's estate, Fury knows what a Big Mac is. Major fake. By the way, let your people not stare at my manor every day. Otherwise a mushroom bomb will hit your headquarters at any time. This is called heavenly justice. By the way, Mr. Spencer, what would Miko say if I hit them with a mushroom bullet? Spencer smiled. Young master, it should be a nuclear leak, but we will donate some rescue funds to those who survived, in the name of God. Ah, Mr. Spencer, you are so kind. Young master, you too. Major fact.